This is in many ways a very historic evening, but I have a very unhistoric task in introducing Steve Scully. Nobody needs less introduction than Steve. As an Erie native, he has become one of the outstanding citizens of this community on a national level. For those few of you who may not know, he's C-SPAN's senior executive producer, political editor since 1991, 26 years of covering the national scene. He has been responsible for coordinating all aspects of C-SPAN's campaign programming. He's involved with as the senior producer for the White House coverage. He serves as the regular Sunday host of Washington Journal. In addition, he hosts and produces other programs for C-SPAN. In Depth, Road to the White House, PC. And he was elected by his peers from the Washington House Press Corps as the former president of the White House Correspondents Association. That kind of recognition from your peers is extraordinary. While attending college, he showed this promise by serving as an intern in the office of Joe Biden, who we're working hard to bring here next year as a part of our speaker series. And later, he was a staff assistant to Senator Edward Kennedy's media affairs offices. You couldn't pick two more interesting acolytes. In many ways, in '85, his education was furthered by a Master of Science degree in journalism from Northwestern, and he graduated magna cum laude. Prior to that, he received his Bachelor of Arts in Communications from American University. And I must say, I had the pleasure of having him in class at Mercyhurst, where he also got an A. That's right, which is what you would expect, although there weren't very many of them. He's even studied in Europe at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark. Importantly and interestingly enough, Cablefax magazine recently listed him as one of cable's 100 heavy hitters. 100 heavy hitters. In January 2004, he had a similar honor, being listed with Tim Russert, Katie Couric, Bob Schrieffer, among the media's most influential movers and shakers in programming. An Erie native, of which we can truly be proud. To me, it's very interesting that he's one of 13 children in a family that produced 5 sets of twins. From that extraordinary beginning, no wonder he's an extraordinary person. He lives in Fairfax. He's the parent of 4 himself. You have some more to go, Steve. Right? During the national debate between Trump and Clinton, Steve was the backup man. If either person had gotten sick who was chosen to interview those two, Steve would have been the person who would have stepped in. And so we have brought the best and the brightest, a native son, back to Erie because of this debate. And there is a reason for that. But I want to mention a few final notes before I mention the reason. It's important for all here tonight to know that none of the 3 groups sponsoring tonight's events, the Jefferson, the Reader, the Erie Reader, and QLN, have endorsed any candidate. And all questions that will be asked by Steve are Steve's responsibility alone. We have no idea what he will ask, and so this evening we've tried to keep as neutral as possible. And why? We believe that tonight's is an important election. All elections are important. But there are some more important than others. You know, there's, in the book that we just finished on Erie politics, we discuss V.O. Key, a national political historian, who said that most elections are nothing but a referendum on past elections. They're Me Too elections. Nothing much new happens out of them for a serious period of time only the candidates may differ. The groups that hold the power continue to hold the power. But every once in a while, there's what he calls a critical election. And a community's history is determined by the outcome of those intermediate or intermittent critical elections. In that election, new forces come forward, new ideas come forward, new coalitions are formed, new dreams are shared, and a new sense of beginning grips the community. I've had the pleasure of being involved with a lot of Erie elections, and I can honestly say this is the first one where I sense that it is a truly critical election. That Erie will be different because of this election. That the forces at play indicate that the community instinctively recognizes that this is the moment where important things must occur for the future. And so this is a very special night. And I think we owe a great deal of gratitude to all of the candidates who have spent all the time, effort, and treasure in being a part of it. If we're correct that it is a special election, you will indeed be remembered as a part of it. And for making the effort, for going forward, for all the difficulty of running for office, you're all heroes in our mind. So with that comment, I invite the man of the hour, Steve, to come up and take charge of this program. And thank all of you for attending.
Thank you, Dr. Garvey. The one editorial note I would make is that he is a hell of a grader, so anyhow. Let me welcome the 7 candidates to the debate tonight. Lisa Austin, if you could please come to the podium. Jay Brenneman, Almy Clerkin, Steve Franklin, Bob Mursky, Ruby Jenkins' husband, and Joe Schember. And a round of applause for all of them for being here tonight. Thank you. As all of you get settled in, let me just go through a couple of things. This is the 3rd time this week you've met, so we are going to dispense with the opening statements. I'm going to get right to the questions. We hope that we'll be able to manage the time. We'll be fair to make sure all of you have enough time. No bells, no whistles, no clocks, but we have 7 individuals keeping track of your time to make sure we're fair to each and every one of you. Also, I ask that you get away from your talking points. Let's have a true debate, a true discussion. At the end, you'll each have a minute for what we call a closing comment. So with that, let me begin, and my first question goes to Bob Mursky. There are many layers of government, as you know, in this area. Some communities like Indianapolis have formed a regional government. So is it time to truly think how city government works and to possibly look at a more regional government, including forming a regional government with partnerships and townships like Mill Creek, Wesleyville, and other areas around the city of Erie?
Well, first off, Steve, I want to thank you for that question, and I want to thank the audience for being here tonight, and as well as my fellow candidates. When we look at this city and where we need to go, of course, we don't say we're from Mill Creek or Lawrence Park. We're all from Erie. So the natural progression is for a metropolitan government. The difficulty and the challenge in that is the way Pennsylvania law is set up. What you have to do to merge municipalities in Pennsylvania is get 50% of the vote from one municipality and 50% of the vote from the other municipality in order to merge municipalities. So moving forward, what we need to do is make Erie, the city, an attractive place and a place that people prefer to live in so that it becomes attractive for municipalities to join with us. But absolutely, I think moving forward, we all know that moving forward, we're stronger together.
So you would take the lead with that type of an effort?
I think we first off need to work with our municipal partners on shared services and with the intention and the progression of moving towards a metropolitan government.
Ruby Jenkins' husband.
Thank you for the question. While serving on City Council, I had an opportunity and an honor to be selected as chairperson of the Council of Governments. It's where all of the municipalities came together for a conversation. We talked about regionalism. We also talked about shared services and how we can reach some common grounds. I think it's good to have that conversation again, but let me say that I appreciated the opportunity to be chair of that COG organization, an important organization because what it does, and when we talk about regionalism, it brings about all the municipalities coming together in one room. We started the discussion. I'd like to continue that as mayor, I would do so.
Would you like to see a regional government?
I would like to see the discussion happen about regional government, and I'll tell you why. As we look back and we see other cities that have regional governments, there are opportunities that happen for those who do have it. Many benefits are in federal government funding. Where there are larger numbers, there's greater opportunities for municipalities. So I would begin that conversation.
Thank you. Jay Brenneman.
My first foray into local government was as an employee of the Council of Governments. Since being in elected office, I've also been the voting member of Erie County Council on the Council of Governments. You know, it isn't so much the law says that we can't force people, we can't annex people, right? But that doesn't mean that we can't work together to merge services or merge municipalities. You take Wesleyville, for example, that has made overtures to Lawrence Park. You've seen these before. You've seen what Fairview has done like 20-some years ago. They took their borough and their township and they realized that they were better as one. So absolutely, it's something we can do right now. It's something I've been a leader on. As a matter of fact, 2 months ago, the Council of Governments held its first ever summit of elected officials from Erie County. We did that because of an action I took as a member of the Council of Governments. I do believe in a regional government. I do believe we need to get there, but first, we need to start working together.
How do you get there?
Again, beginning to work together. I think the city, being the largest municipality, has to be in the room, has to make those overtures. You know, it isn't so much that you need these other municipalities to come crawling to the city of Erie asking or begging for help. The city of Erie, as the biggest municipality, needs to reach out and say, how can I help you? What do you need? And then you start those relationships, and then from there, you're able to, we'll get closer to that regional government that we so need.
Steve Franklin.
Thank you. When you look at our region and you look at all the assets we have, it doesn't take long to realize that we share amongst all the municipalities, the townships, and the boroughs, all those assets. It only makes sense that we move towards a regional government so that it benefits everyone in this community, not just select few people in different areas. So what we want to do is we want to take the lead. Erie should take the lead on metro government here in the Erie County area. If you look at places like Atlanta, Georgia, which is a metro area, it only made sense for them years ago to develop a metro area and gain all the assets that they had down there in order to benefit everyone in that community.
Mr. Schember.
I do believe we'd all be better off with a regional government. And as mayor, I'd want to take the lead in trying to make that happen, and here's how I would do it. First, I want to build relationships with the municipalities around Erie, in particular, not necessarily limited to this, but in particular, Mill Creek, Summit, Harbor Creek, Wesleyville, and Lawrence Park. I want to build a close relationship, and that means talking, which doesn't happen now. After we've built a relationship, I want to find things we can do together that benefit both of our constituents. After we've done some of that, then I think it's time to start talking about, don't you think we'd be better off if we were one government? We could do things much more cost effectively and efficiently, and we'd have a much higher voice in both Harrisburg and Washington, D.C.
Alney Clerkin.
Yes, I firmly believe in a regional government. As a director, executive director of an arts organization, we have been tasked several years ago, and John Vanko's here, he could attribute to this, to make sure that we're working better and more efficiently as organizations. And we came together to help create Erie Arts and Culture to help us do that. So I believe that things like shared services and funding opportunities come to the groups. And we have that proof already in the Erie Area Council on Governments, who works with 11 to 13 municipalities, and the school districts have been invited too to be a part of that. So if they can become more efficient organizations, share their services, share their resources, and in Erie we know our best resource are the people, so we can do that as well. So, and I think the mayor has to be present. We have an appointment on the ECOG, but I think the mayor should be an integral part of the decision-making and be there to hear all the communication and everyone coming together. We're going to be a better city. This election's a perfect example. How many people have talked to people that said, I don't live in Erie, I don't have a vote in this critical election? If we were regional government, we would have that vote, and everyone would, and they'd be a part of it.
Thank you. Lisa Austin.
Years ago, when I was speaking to the director of the Redevelopment Authority, he drew a line for me, and he said that the problem is based on this idea, this reality that we have. So, between point A and point B, we have 20 different organizations, municipalities to come together to make any decision. And so I thought about it, and I realized that these municipalities, the way they're set up, they really are left over from the times when we had to get around walking or riding a horse. I mean, we don't really need to have so many separate entities making decisions now that we have cars and other ways of getting around. So I spoke again quite a while ago when Ed Lesser was the head of the Council of Governments about this issue, and more recently with Jessica Horan-Kunso. And I've reached out to Alan Klugler, who's apparently a Pennsylvania expert on this very issue. And as already been stated, we have a unique obstacle here in Pennsylvania because there's so many layers of agreements that have to be made to allow this to happen. But I believe that it's going to be very important for the mayor to really set the table so that this can happen. I don't know that it can happen in 4 years or even 10 years, but for instance, I thought it was a great opportunity when there was an overture by the county executive to take over the appointments and the funding for the Erie Metropolitan Transit Authority. I thought that was a great, easy, kind of low-hanging fruit, a way for us to start thinking about we are a region, we need to make decisions that way.
Bob Mursky, on that point, was that a good idea
With
regard to
EMTA?
EMTA?
My two guiding principles with EMTA were, number one, the city wants to be a partner with the EMTA because 80% of the riders are city residents. And number two, I did not want service degraded to the city, and that would not be guaranteed by the county. So those were my two guiding principles in moving the EMTA negotiations.
Jay Brenneman, next question to you, and be as specific as you can. One thing that you have done to make the city of Erie a better place, specifically.
Where to begin? Gosh, the one thing I'm proud about is that the summer jobs program, through my efforts and of course my colleagues on county council, we created a program knowing that our young people, the largest segment of our population, they needed hope. They needed the soft skill training, they needed the job training and a trajectory to a career. And since its inception 4 years ago, we've had over 400 young people, mostly from the city of Erie, go through that program. That's the one I am the most proud of.
Steve Franklin, specifically, one thing that you have done.
Civically, I've been involved in a sports program with the youth in the community for 30 years as of this year. It requires my presence at the baseball field with these kids every night. Every night they have a game. And because of that, I've invested a huge amount of time in that, not because of any glory that goes with it, but simply because to make sure that these kids have the opportunity to get off of the street, get onto the ball field, and preoccupy their time with something other than getting into trouble. Now, with 30 years behind me, we've done a lot of work in that program. We've done a lot of work with the kids themselves, and a lot of these kids have gone on to bigger and better things in their lives and actually taken up some careers, and I think it's attributable to the fact that they did spend time within this program.
Jay Schember.
The thing I'm proudest of is my work with the Eagle's Nest here in town. We've developed 3 programs that are making a difference. The first one is a program where we train young, mostly African Americans in their early 20s on the soft skills that we all learned as kids that they didn't learn for jobs. When they complete this 3-week program, they're guaranteed a full-time job, either at UPMC Hammett or at Erie Homes for Children and Adults. We've put 100 people, children, young adults through this program, and 75 of them are still working at their employment. That's over the last 2 years. The second thing we've done, I helped create a 16-week financial literacy program for juniors and seniors in the Erie Public High Schools. We delivered that over the last school year, just finished up in early March. There were about 15 boys and girls, young adults that participated in that, and they really learned their stuff because at the end of the program, we had them play a Jeopardy game, broke them into teams, and they showed us that they were listening and they learned. The third thing just starting is a boys' academy over at Bishop Brock's Eagle's Nest. That's just starting. It's a new program to try to prevent young boys from going into the life of crime and violence. That's what I'm proudest of.
Ruby Jenkins' husband, specific example, one thing that you have done.
First year on council, I took the initiative to revitalize the Parade Street corridor. The purpose was, and my main reason for doing so, was that I read the statistics that showed the highest amount of poverty in our city. We had a high amount of poverty citywide, but the highest was in Track 14. That Track 14 was Central City, Erie. And so I began to work with the residents. I worked with the neighborhood watch groups, business owners who had made an investment for years and wanted to expand their businesses. So we came together to form the Parade Street Development Corporation with the energy and excitement of transforming that corridor, reducing the blight, removing the boarded up buildings, giving people hope in the area. And hope did come. After some 3 years, we saw major development. Now we look back and we ride down the corridor, we no longer see the boarded up buildings, the decay and the effects of hopelessness that once was. Jobs were developed, construction jobs for people in the area. There are people working now in that corridor, people who were unemployed years ago. There are people expanding their business there. You know, they're expanding it because they had confidence that it was coming back. It was reviving again. And that's what I'm very proud of the accomplishments on Parade Street.
Bob Mursky.
Personally, it's my work with children and youth, and professionally, we started a city revolving loan fund. We took $250,000 of seed money and we're loaning it out to businesses. We have a state revolving loan fund that went from $50,000 in the 1980s. It's now worth $7 million. Now we started our own city revolving loan fund, and within the next 2 years, we're going to be able to use that money to give out micro loans to small businesses. And so these are the types of things. They planted a seed, and they're going to be longevity in the program. So I'm very proud of that.
Almy Clerkin.
At the Playhouse, of course, we want our product on 10th Street to be fabulous. But one of my goals when I started 11 years ago as the leader was that we move beyond 10th Street and be part of the community. So like many of you, I attended all of the Erie Together meetings, right? There was about an initiative 6 years ago to work on education, careers, job development with our children. So we were racking our brains, what can we do to be a part of Erie Together? So the Playhouse Youth Theater is 5 to 18. So we thought, why don't we start a pre-K program and work with 2, 3, 4-year-olds. We developed a program called Playtime, where we take the Imagination Library books that all of our children 0 to 60 months receive 1 a month, and we use those books in their classrooms. We chose 4 preschools in downtown Erie based on the population that we wanted to work with. We partnered with the United Way and got our first multi-year grant that we ever got at the Erie Playhouse. We were very excited about that. It's a 3-year program and a 3-year grant. And so when we started with the 2-year-olds, we worked with 100 kids in these 4 schools. We're up to 7 schools now in the 2nd year, and we work with the new 2-year-olds and then add the 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and so on. And in addition to that, we work with Gannon University, partner with them, and their theater students perform the shows that we do with the children and for the children. So now we have thousands of children that come to the Playhouse each year because of the Playtime program. Our goal, quickly, is that we help make children reading ready by 3rd grade. And that's one of the goals of the United Way, and we're so proud and privileged to be a part of that program.
Lisa Austin.
About 10 years ago, I was thinking about the industry that's here, the manufacturing, and I discovered that most of what is manufactured here are parts of things or military contracts. What is missing in the equation were what is called locally held design patents, meaning that people would design a product here, have it manufactured here, marketed from here, so that the wealth would stay here, kind of like Mark's Toys used to be in Griswold Pans. And so I went through the Erie Ambassador Program wanting to get on their Economic Development Committee. And I was surprised when I went through the program and sat on the committee that the focus was on attracting larger enterprises here. Not against that, but I asked the question, what about the people that are here? How can we grow what's here? How can we get people who have ideas to actually create a business? There wasn't a lot of interest on the committee. So I called together some of the people I'd met in the community, including John Vanko back there, and we had what is called Sam and Ed meetings for about 2 years at the Plymouth Tavern Party Room. And Sam and Ed stands for Science, Art, Manufacturing, Engineering, and Design. And I pulled together as many people as I could, and we kept talking about all different possibilities for the region. We finally settled on focusing on creating a design competition, which is called Innovation Erie. And it's been held, thanks to the goodness of the Erie Art Museum, at the Erie Art Museum since 2008. We've had over 100 people submit design ideas, and a few of them who've won have gone on to create new products. They get marketing help, manufacturing help, legal help, and a little nest egg of money to get something going. And so I think that anyway, you're asking what I'm most proud of. I'm proud to say that through this, we actually have new businesses and a few new jobs in Erie. And nationally, this is where we're going to get the new jobs. We're going to get them from new businesses, and so I'm proud of that.
Thank you for that. This is going to be an easy one by a show of hands. One of you will be the Democratic nominee. The others voted off the island. By a show of hands, will you all support whoever is the Democratic Party nominee in this election? Okay. The next focus is really based in Jay Brenneman, Joe Schember will begin with you on this round of questioning, based on the Erie Refocused. In 2 words, it says that this city needs a course correction. So can you assure voters that you will make sure that business as usual is not conducted at City Hall?
I absolutely assure voters that if I'm mayor, business as usual will not continue. We need to change. We need to make change. I've heard Buki say in this room, do something. Try something different. If it doesn't work, try something else. He was like pleading with us to do it. I'm totally committed to his recommendation that we start with the core, the downtown, the Bayfront, the east and west Bayfront neighborhoods, and make them world-class. Make them places where people want to live and work, have a lot of nice bike paths, walking paths, and most importantly, have a connection with the downtown and the east and west Bayfront neighborhoods to the Bayfront. Right now, they're cut off by the Bayfront Highway. We need the iconic connection at State Street, a nice walking park over the Bayfront Highway, down to the Bayfront, and we need a connection from both the east and the west side Bayfront neighborhoods. That's extremely important.
Steve Franklin, same question.
Thank you. 105 pages of Erie Refocus. That is our plan. That's the plan that we have to act upon. That's our roadmap to revitalize the Erie area. When you look at all the contents of that, the strategies, and what it recommends, we have to keep something in mind. Charles Buki himself, who wrote that plan, also made a point that that plan is a guideline. It's not carved in concrete. So we have to look at that plan, and the real skill I think that's going to come to bear is the one that can look at that plan and say what needs to be done, what can be done, and what can't be done, and let's move on and have a success with the parts that we can succeed on.
So based on that, what can't be done? What is in the plan that you do not like or do not think is feasible?
I think part of the plan that's going to be the most difficult is the getting rid of all the blighted and abandoned properties. There's a long process, drawn-out process to remove those from the rolls and revitalize those properties. And there's quite a few of them in the city. I can't remember the exact number. I want to say 1,900, 19,000. But there's a lot of them that are not going to get taken off the rolls simply because of the process that drives that. So we're going to have to take a look at the successes that we can accomplish in that plan and move on with those and make sure that they succeed.
But if you look, let me just follow up on that point, because if you look at what they've done in Detroit, in Buffalo, and in Cleveland, Chicago, they're trying to get rid of these homes that are not fit for anyone to live in and to try to recreate neighborhoods that have been dilapidated for crime or other areas.
Correct, and there's an entire link to all the things that are going on within these neighborhoods. Crime is one of them, the blighted properties, getting back to the education and the kids making sure they're educated. All that drives what's vibrant about a community, and especially a neighborhood. With the 17 planning zones they have, each one of them, their strategy is laid out within the plan. We're going to have to get into those neighborhoods. We're going to have to look at that strategy that's recommended and try to determine exactly what we can accomplish, whether we're going to be able to accomplish exactly what it says, or we need to be flexible and adjust for that.
So what would you do with the housing stock that you say we can't remove?
First of all, we need to go after the ones we can remove. Let's get those out of the way. Let's start to rebuild some of these neighborhoods. Once we rebuild those and we can get the revitalized, we can get some of the people to either fix their properties or give them up to someone who does want to fix them.
Jay Brenneman.
So how to change the course direction in City Hall. First off, as Charles Buki said, you got to move the conversation about the comprehensive plan, which I found most voters don't even know exists. We have to move that conversation out of boardrooms, out of City Hall, and down into the neighborhoods, those 17 planning districts that Steve spoke of. Like Pete Lombardi, one of the other partners of CZB said, he told me you have to have these conversations in the church basements and around the kitchen tables around the city. That's something I will do as your next mayor. We have to realize that the city is more than just about buildings and structures. It's a city of people. We have to engage those people who are not used to be engaged. They feel disaffected. They ask themselves, why would I continue to volunteer my time in this city? Why would I continue to call this city home when I don't even feel as if I'm a part of this community? You could talk to business leaders. I had coffee with business leaders this morning. They have several millions of dollars worth of investments in this city, and they feel like they get treated like criminals in City Hall, or that things are so bumbled when it comes to paperwork or everything else when it comes to that why would they invest in the city of Erie?
Part of that conversation, though, is also the 4 votes on city council. How do you take the lead there?
So in the Army, as a staff sergeant, I realized that in order to get to the change that you needed, you explained the mission that you needed to accomplish, and then you empowered those and you developed those other leaders so that they could be a part of it. So as mayor, I'll be sure that city council members have an active role and a specific role to play in the comprehensive plan in implementing it. They have to have a role. It can't be just something that the mayor says, here, I'm going to do this, I want your vote. They have to have an actual place at the table, just like everybody else in the community and the business leaders.
Alderman Clerkin, again, let me remind you the question. Can you assure voters that if elected, your administration will not be business as usual?
It will not be business as usual. I love implementing plans. It's one of my favorite things to do. My dad, Alex Clemente, always taught me, plan the work the plan. So I do that all the time. What I'm excited about is the 105-page plan, but I'm more excited about the 6-page letter that accompanied it. So the plan will be on my desk, but closer to me will be the letter. And one of the things that Mr. Buki said was that Erie has an aversion to risk. So we can't be status quo and make risky decisions and get all the information that we need to make the best decision. So I think I'm really excited that we have this roadmap. It's been planned out by really smart people. We know what the investment's going to be and what the kind of money that we need. My job will be helping find those resources, which I do every day. Also, I totally agree with Jay. The people have to be involved in the plan. But since the plan is by neighborhoods, the people will be involved because that's where we go. And the first 5-year plan includes 5 neighborhoods and 5 areas. So we need to get the investment from them as well to be a part of it. So I'll keep the plan by me, the letter by me, and we'll get this work done. And we do have to have the buy-in from all of the leaders as well, even beyond Erie. And it's already nice that the county's working on the plan and has taken a role with Kathy Rosdick being our consultant for that.
Bob Mursky, same question.
First off, I'm very proud of the work that we've already done with the comprehensive plan. As councilman, I put in the ordinance that created the land bank, which was one of the first things that Charles Buki said to do. And I also diverted CDBG funds to bring a code enforcement officer to our targeted area of East and West Bayfront, partnering with our neighborhood partners in our West Bayfront and the Bayfront East Side Task Force. So moving forward, we have a big challenge because on page 82 of this document, it has a $300 million price tag. $300 million. If we were to tax people, everyone would have to raise their taxes 64% across this city. 64% tax increase. So if you pay $1,000 in taxes, you're now paying $1,640. Now, I agree with Dr. Badams when he said people have one foot out the door because of taxes. So the challenge moving forward with this is how do we implement this without burdening the taxpayers? And we are doing that work. Some of the things that we've done already, we applied for a $500 million grant to combat blight through the state. And the other thing we did is we partnered with the investment that VelocityNet's doing to create a campus-like setting through a multimodal grant through the state to transform the 10th Street corridor. So moving forward, I don't believe that this plan has to be top-down. It has to be all of us working together. The neighborhoods, the business community, and the city. As mayor, I'm prepared to lead those conversations, but we need everybody coming together on this.
If it requires a tax increase to implement some of these programs, would you support it?
I think we need to have those conversations with the community and see if the community will support it, because ultimately, this plan is the plan of the community. It's the community's plan, and to Steve Franklin's point, this is a guide. And it was made by somebody in Alexandria, Virginia, where, raising taxes that much might not be a big deal there. But I think of people like my grandmother, who lives on 37th and Ash and is on a fixed income. She bought her house brand new in 1960. She's now in her 80s. She couldn't afford a 64% tax increase. So the way we move this forward is through grants and through being creative and being collaborative. For example, one of the things that we did with the Sisters of St. Joseph Neighborhood Network, there's a grant through the state that municipalities are not allowed to apply for, but nonprofit organizations are. We partnered with the sisters, told them about the grant, helped them write the grant, and they received the grant. So these are the types of creative things that we need to do moving forward, and we'll do it out of City Hall.
I'll come to you in a moment. You're shaking your head, Jay Brenneman. Why?
Well, first off, I believe that Councilman Mirsky had advocated on record for increasing the school district taxes, which I think is absurd, but also the fact that the city turned down millions of dollars of savings worth of funding that the county had offered to pay to take the regional bus service, which the county has never diminished services for regional services from the city. It's the county seat. It's the largest municipality in the region. And he turned down millions of dollars that they could have saved to invest in the comprehensive plan. And then on top of that, Buki doesn't say you need to just raise taxes. He says you need to get private investment started. You need to have private investors that come and do this. And it's also kind of odd that he would bring up that he was from D.C. I don't think that has anything to do with it unless you're looking at polls or something like that.
Did you want to respond?
I just wanted to clarify to the audience that Mr. Brennan didn't get the support for his plan for the EMTA. It never came to a vote with county council, and it was never brought to city council. So the plan that was passed was the one that I worked on with Kathy Dahl-Kemper, Andre Horton, and the mayor. That's the one that passed that Mr. Brenneman voted for.
Ruby Jenkins' husband.
Thank
Again,
you.
the question, if elected, can you assure voters that it will not be business as usual?
Well, I would take the leadership role in really revitalizing Erie citywide and bringing people and resources together, collaboration and partnerships. And when I look back, and I've shared with you about the Parade Street Initiative, first thing we did, we put together, along with the neighbors, it was the neighbors' input, but there was a 5-year plan from the city, and it included the revitalization of the central city area. So what we did was we met as a councilwoman. I met with the neighbors, along with the engineers and planners, and we said, here's how your neighborhood looks now. What input or what do you want to see happen to get it to the future where your neighborhood could be revived and people would enjoy the lifestyles they deserve to have? The neighbors did give their input. And so the plans was finalized. Now what you see, before and after, beautiful neighborhood. But 2 things had to happen there. First, there was new development. They wanted the new development to blend in with the old development. And the residents who were living there for 30 or more years said, how would we get monies to rehab our older homes so that we can enjoy the same lifestyles of people with having new development. So we work with them on that plan with redevelopment authority to do that. Then they said they wanted a park in their area. And this is what they wanted the park to look like. So those plans were included. So after we completed that revitalization initiative in Central City, moved on to the lower part of Parade Street. Here again, the first thing that I took part in was meeting with the neighbors. Neighbors came together again. They said how they wanted their neighborhood to look. Of course, it took investments from different people who were in the area, private and public partnership, but we all met. So they designed and gave input to how their neighborhood would look like 5 or 6 years from now. So if you go down to that neighborhood, you will see a beautiful neighborhood. So I go back to the plan too, the revitalization plan, the plan that calls for us to come together and refocus Erie. I think the same initiative should be used citywide. It can happen. It takes hard work. A lot of initiatives on the leader part. I would be that leader. So I would have those public meetings again. I would bring those resources. I've worked with Public Works for years. I've worked with the Redevelopment Authority. I've worked with the zoning people, looking at the zoning issues that are needed and may be required to complete this plan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lisa Austin.
Business as usual? I don't do that, actually.
Same question, yes.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I sort of thought I should be exempted from it because everyone here knows that's not what I do.
Why? Tell us why.
Well, because one of my, I think it's partially nature and it's partially experience. I have, when I'm confronted with something that seems like a problem, I try to understand it, and then I go to the people in positions of authority to help resolve it, and if their answers don't make sense, I kind of continue the questioning. And so in other words, just a quick yes or no or who's in charge has never stopped me. In other words, like the different organizations that I've helped to form are not organizations I wanted to form. It's I went to the logical entities that exist here and tried to get some traction around different ideas, and there was resistance, so I would go another way. But I want to make a specific comment about the nature of City Hall. And I know that there are 2 candidates running in this election, one for mayor and one for city council. And these are both people who had really good ideas to address some of the problems within the city, and they didn't get traction. And I would be really very much changing the nature of City Hall so that the people who are there, who have institutional knowledge, can become part of the solutions.
Thank you. Joe Schember, is there any reason why this area should not have a community college?
No, I support the community college, and I support it strongly, basically for 3 reasons. One, I've talked to leaders in our minority communities. They strongly believe, and that, by the way, that's where most of our unemployment exists right now. And they really believe that the community college will help their residents and constituents get you good family-sustaining jobs. So I support it for that reason. Also, it's what the community college does is they work with businesses in Erie to determine what training they need, and they provide that then to their students. They tailor their classes to the needs of the Erie businesses. Erie Insurance, we know, is bringing 600, 800 new jobs to Erie with their new office that they're building downtown. And they strongly support the community college because they really believe in that.
Steve Franklin, any reason why this city in this region should not have a community college?
Not the one I can think of. I support it wholly, simply because not so much it was what they have to offer, but who they have to offer it to. And that is at-risk and underprivileged people who really need to get into a job training program, some type of job application, so they can get a good-paying job out there. We can't open our arms up as a community and say, come on, businesses, come on down to Erie, Pennsylvania, relocate here because we're a vibrant community and we have a lot of things going on, only to say, we have no trained workers for you, though.
Bob Mursky, same question.
I believe that people in this region need educational opportunities, and I think that moving forward, any elected official who's worth their weight in salt, make sure they do all the studies, make sure that they talk to the people, and make sure that they know what the bottom line is going to be before they make a decision. I believe in making informed decisions. So it's not that I don't support a community college. That's not true. I support the concept of a community college, but as an elected official, I have a responsibility to the taxpayers to make sure that we go through the process. And there's a feasibility study being done right now, and I want to see the results of that feasibility study before we move forward. We have champions for this project, and that's excellent, and I support their efforts completely. But as an elected official, I have to also weigh the whole situation. So yes, we do need a community college, but the devil's in the details, and that's how we need to proceed forward with this. As elected officials, we can't just go into things without having information. And I find it interesting that we want all these community discussions on the comprehensive plan, but we haven't had many community discussions about a community college. No elected officials have been going out and having town halls on it. So let's get the voice of the people and let's move forward with it. I'm all for it, but let's make sure that we craft something that the people really want.
Well, let me follow up if I could on that, because as a reporter here 30 years ago, we were talking about a community college. Sure. And for the last 10 years, General Electric has said that they need a community college to feed into GE.
Right.
So at what point does the city get beyond the studies and turn to action?
Well, first off, the city's not doing the study. So let's be clear, the city's not doing the study. The study's being done by Empower Erie through work with the Community Foundation and the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority. And I think that, like I said, I'm not opposed to a community college, but the devil's in the details. If they're just going to offer gen ed classes that are offered at Perico Center, we don't need to duplicate services. So, like I said, we got to get the details on moving forward, and I think that's where you have to talk to your business owners, talk to the community, and let's do a needs assessment and make sure, not a needs assessment, do we need a community college, but a needs assessment on what is the programming that we need to develop. And the second thing is, how can we do it at the least costly way? We have facilities already that have training. Let's see if we can plug into those. So,
what would the timeline be from the study to reality, whether or not it's feasible or not?
I believe their study's almost done. That's what we were waiting for on City Council. They asked us to take a vote on it, and I don't believe in taking votes before I read what I'm voting on. And so we decided to table it. But no, everybody knows that we need educational opportunities for our people. As a teacher in the city of Erie, I know that. But let's go through the process and make sure we do it right. That's too often in this community, we've done things the wrong way, as Charles Buki said. So let's make sure we get this right.
Jay Brenneman, same question. Any reason this area should not have a community college?
Absolutely none. I have counseled hundreds of veterans, their widows, their spouses, and their traditional age children who have used the GI Bill at 2 area universities. I know for a fact that there is a gap that's missing in our educational ecosystem. And when it comes to knowing whether or not this is something we should have or how it goes, as elected officials, we have to be proactive and we have to go out and get that information. It's there. Empower Erie has been going around throughout the county talking with community leaders around, and we do have some public hearings that will be in the neighborhoods that will be coming up soon. But again, it comes to proactive discussion, and like you said, this is nothing new. It's nothing new about. There's nothing new about it. The funding, I can give everybody a little, heads up. Hopefully I'm not, stealing anybody's thunder, but it's going to be done without any tax increases. And all it takes is a phone call or a conversation. Hey, how do you guys plan on paying for that? It'd be that simple.
That's simple, but it would require community support and possibly tax dollar support.
Absolutely.
Infrastructure.
The community college has community support. It does have widespread support, and it will take the community dollars. As long as people stop playing around with the gaming revenue, we'll be able to pay for it without any additional increases to taxes.
Lisa Austin.
There's money available right now that will go away if we don't use it. There's $10 million that Governor Wolf has earmarked. There's another $10 million that the state has. There's 3.5 from the Erie Community Foundation, and then that's another 3.5. Anyway, there's about 27 million ready to be spent on this. Now, there does need to be a local match, but I've checked into this, and it's possible that some of that could be actually in-kind services and or actually, buildings. In other words, we don't have to actually put cash towards it. And the cash could come, the match, the county does have to supply something, but again, it could be not necessarily in the form of dollars.
Ruby Jenkins' husband.
Oh, I support the community college. We've heard from business owners already. I've seen the reports or their feedback that they're saying that it would benefit them greatly to have the 2-year program for career opportunities and persons that they need in their businesses. So for that reason, yes, I support the college. I think I asked the same question. What's taking us so long? What's taking us so long?
Almy Clerkin.
Let's just get it done.
You're right, Ruby. What's taking us so long? Because the last time we heard the reason it failed was there wasn't money behind it. And and Lisa gave you all the numbers, especially the money that's right here in Erie at the Transformational Philanthropy Center at the Community Foundation. So we have the money. We have very smart people working on in Empower Erie to get the work done. The candidates, we had an opportunity to meet with them, and we did. The other thing that's interesting, though, and the university presidents have a buy-in to this community college. My husband Sean teaches at Gannon. 1 in 3 kids that doesn't go to college don't think they deserve it. That's horrible. And 25% of kids have no idea how to pay for college. That's horrible. So this will be an economic way to do it. We'll be able to get it done. They'll be able to get their education. Then they can get the jobs that we need so we can turn our city around. So we have a lot of people behind this right now. So we need to move forward. The mayor needs to make sure it moves forward. We can match jobs and education. We can give these children the opportunity they need to succeed.
Lisa Austin.
To add that we need, one of the objections that could be raised against the community college is by people who have not actually gone to college. And I think that it's going to be really crucial that we educate the public about this, because I talk to people all the time and they're like, we have enough colleges. So we have to really make it clear that the tax won't be increased, and also that why we need this. The businesses need it. We have 50% of our manufacturers' employees are going to be retiring in a few years, that we don't have people that are skilled to go into them, and the community college could prepare that. So, in other words, I think that the city and the region sometimes has done a lot without informing people about why. And so we have to really have a good PR campaign about why this is so important for our community.
Almy Clerkin, the next question goes to you. The current mayor has been praised for his budget skills, but criticized on a number of fronts, and I won't go into the criticism. My question is, what are the lessons of what not to do based on the last 12 years of the Joe Sinnott administration?
Well, I think that sign right there says that information is the currency of democracy. We need to share information. We have to communicate everything that we're doing. So obviously there's things that have to remain confidential before they're completed, and that obviously we have to pay attention to. But there's times when we have to be more transparent and share information, and share the things that we're doing well, and then if there's more challenges, we need to discuss those, evaluate them, assess them, and move on. Joe Sinnott did a great job. We could be in bankruptcy right now if Joe Sinnott didn't do his job and balance our budget and get it, and make sure we didn't get into Act 47. Thank you, sir. So I think it's important that we do thank him for that. The way I lead is to be present and to be visible. And our mayor has been criticized for that, right? That he stays in his office on the 5th floor of City Hall. The man is working. We know he's working, but we don't see him, and we need to see the mayor. The mayor has to attend events. The mayor has to be present. The mayor has to stand next to the school superintendent and be the voice for our children. The mayor has to go to Harrisburg, has to go to D.C. to talk to Amtrak about keeping our train service here. The mayor has to be out and about and be present. And not, I know we assign a lot of people to different authorities. The mayor will do that, but every so often the mayor should pop in and be a part of it, and listen to what's happening and hear what people have to say.
And just to be clear, you're saying he has not done that?
The discussion is that he has not. I see him out at some events when we have press releases, like tomorrow the Erie Arts and Culture has one. I'm assuming he will be there. So I've seen him at some press conferences. We went to the Law Day this week, my husband and I, and he was on the pulpit. So, oh, that's church, right? He was up on the dais, yeah, so he was there. So anyway, he has been present, but I think we need a mayor that will promote what's happening in our city, the good stuff. We need to hear the good stuff. And then we need a mayor that's going to stand by the challenges. And that's I think that's maybe what we've been missing.
And I would say you're all at the pulpit, but this is a Jewish synagogue, so
That's
I can't
right.
say
Can't
that.
say that.
Joe Schember, same question. What are the lessons of what not to do based on the last 12 years of the Joe Sinnott administration?
I think you have to get out of your office, be available to people, and what I want to do is, ideally, I'd like every citizen of Erie to feel they can talk to me, and I'll listen to them. I want to do things like go to neighborhood association meetings, which I did regularly when I was on city council, which I've done now as a candidate. My intention would be, if I'm mayor, continue doing that, and also have a staff member whose job is to go to every neighborhood association meeting, and if I'm not there, report back to me on what goes on. I want to schedule walks to the neighborhood, pre-announced walks where people can meet with me. Occasionally on my lunch hour, I'd like to just go out, walk up and down State Street and talk to people. So I want to be active and visible and be transparent also. I know everything I will do, maybe some things may be criticized. None of us are perfect, but if I make a mistake, I'm going to admit it and change and do a better thing if people come to me with that. Finally, I want to listen to diverse opinions. I want to have a diverse staff. I want to listen to everyone. And then bottom line, every decision I make will be based on what's best for Erie.
Steve Franklin.
Well, I have the unique of working side by side with Joe Sinnott as the chief of police. There are times where you're very busy up there in the mayor's office, and just let me get that for the record. As the mayor, I would make sure that I have a total connection with the people that I serve. You have to be out, you have to be visible, you have to be part of the population that you're leading, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for leadership. They're not just looking for your face on the TV or your little quote in the newspaper. They want to see you because you are the leader of the city, and you're responsible for what goes on in the city to make sure that everything's addressed. So with that, I would make sure that I was part of the population out there. I would be willing to go out and mingle with the people, whether it's in a coffee shop or at a corner store or someone mowing their grass, just to get my finger on the pulse of what goes on in the city. I did that as a police officer for 33 years. I got a very good understanding of what makes people tick out there because I heard from them every day, and I would do that as the mayor as well.
And just to follow up, you used the word connection. You're saying that there has not been that connection over the last 12 years?
I don't believe so. There's too many people who are saying that they don't see the mayor, they don't know what the mayor is doing, they don't know where he's at. Joe's a quiet guy, but that doesn't work for the mayor's office.
Jay Brenneman, same question.
I think my opponents have pretty much laid out the groundwork that everybody knows that the mayor is not visible. I want to commend my opponents who have been active in the community like I have even before taking public office, doing tremendous work in the community, getting things done, not just showing up, shaking hands, taking a selfie and leaving, but actually getting things done. And I think that's what the mayor has to do. The mayor has to be with the police chief when he's in the communities talking about the violence. He has to stay at the table until something gets done. That's the kind of work that the mayor needs to do. It isn't so much that the mayor needs to be behind a desk getting work done, and it's not so much that the mayor needs to have a visible presence in the community, but the mayor needs to roll up his or her sleeves and get to work with the people that's at the ground level making things happen.
Ruby.
I think it's important for the mayor to be visible in the community. And I have spent over 30 years in community service and being visible. I work in neighborhoods. I'm out with people. Well, even while serving on city council, I remember when constituents would call. Some may have had street issues, street problems, street concerns. I went to meet with them in their neighborhoods about it. I remember people who had questions about redevelopment issues or their homes needed repairs. Sometimes people would call about roofs. They had problems with holes in the roof. But you know, I went to their homes to see what the problem was. And that's how you really get visible in the community, meeting with the community. So I want everyone to know, just as I've done for 30 years, I plan to do it all over again and again. People need to see their leader. They need to hear from your leader. That's important.
Lisa Austin, you're winning in terms of the amount of time taking up to speak, so keep your answer brief if you would.
It's hard. I wanted to say that if you marry a smoker, you can't really complain a couple years later that they're smoking. We're all guilty here for having nobody run in opposition to the mayor. So I just want to say that he was validated by not having any opponents, and that bothers me that he gets, you know, as you mentioned, his personality, he's a quiet person. I don't know him, and I'm frustrated about him because I tried to meet with him for 10 years. And so the difference between me and him would be that I would definitely meet with people. I would take as my model more like Joyce Savacchio and Rick Filippi, who would meet with you and you know, be engaged in a different way. But again, the complaints about him I think are a little harsh.
Bob Mursky.
I think we have to remember where the city was when Mayor Sinnott took office. We were in a huge deficit, and he was the right man for the time. But times have changed, and so his managerial style, which was successful early in his administration, is now something that's being used to attack him or as a detriment. So I think the next mayor needs to respond to the needs of the times. And what I hear when I'm out in the community is the people want a mayor that is visible, they want a mayor that is accessible, and they want a mayor that they feel is working hard for them. And so as moving forward, that's what I would do as mayor. It's what I've done as a councilman. I've been out in the community. I don't come around once every 4 years when I'm up for re-election. I've stayed in the community, involved in the community, and I plan to do that as mayor.
By the way, this new book, which makes a great Mother's or Father's Day present, called Erie Mayors, 150 Years of Political History. These are yes or no questions. So Bob Mursky, I'll begin with you. And these are some of the recommendations put in place by Dr. Garvey and others. Is it time to tear down City Hall and build a new state-of-the-art building?
No.
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 Does the city need several new permanent neighborhood police precincts?
Permanent? Permanent, no.
No.
We don't have enough police.
Yes.
We don't have enough police.
No.
Should there be a second entry point to Presque Isle, such as a 400-foot tunnel that would connect Presque Isle and Erie's east side to the bayfront?
A boat.
Bob Mursky.
I got to go first again? No, I'm going to say no.
A bridge?
A tunnel? No?
Tunnel?
Yes.
Show me how you do that without heaping it onto the taxpayers' backs.
No.
No tunnel.
No tunnel?
I can't answer. I don't know.
Bridge.
Okay. Should Union Station be refurbished?
Yes.
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 Does the Bayfront Parkway need to expand, including bridges that would connect the east and west side of the city?
Yes.
A bridge, yes.
Now we're up to bridges. Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, where is this bridge? What is?
The Bayfront Parkway, where's Bill Garvey? That would expand to connect the east and the west side of the city along the Bayfront Parkway.
I'm so confused. What do you mean? It's already connected.
From the bluff.
Oh, you're
exactly.
talking about overpasses.
Yes.
Oh, for the pedestrian overpasses or cars and trucks?
Cars.
Oh, not cars and trucks, pedestrians, yeah.
Okay.
This is the thing that Nolan proposed 100 years ago.
Final question, yes or no. Should high-speed rail connect Erie with Pittsburgh?
Yes.
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 Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
You get 2 yeses.
Yes.
Okay. Let me go to another area. And as a former resident of the city, and Ruby Jenkins' husband, you get this first round of question. Why are we our own worst critics?
You know, Erie is a unique city, and I have to tell you that I'm so proud of this city. And everything about what we represent goes out. And that's what, you know, when we talk about Erie, we need to talk about, celebrate those things that make us unique. We have the arts, and we have the Bayfront, and so many neighborhoods with diversity. And those are the things we need to talk about. And you know what, as a leader, I would be like that ambassador, that cheerleader, that promoter who has enthusiasm, and I say to people, this is why you should come to Erie. And I would champion our marketing of those things that are very positive about our city.
Jay Brenneman.
You know, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we have so many people in our city that have not benefited or been to or seen many of the attractions and great assets that we have in our community. It's a shame when I've met young people and old people alike who have never been or haven't been in years or decades to the Presque Isle. You know, you talk about, when you bring up the subject about a bridge or a tunnel that connects people, there's people that haven't been to the #1 state park in Pennsylvania, in our own city. There's no dedicated bus route out to the Presque Isle. That's a shame. And it's those type of things that causes that cynicism. And also, when it comes to things like the community college or some of these bigger projects, when the leaders that have been in office or are in office get to a point where they have to make a decision on it, and then they back down because of a vocal minority, and then something doesn't get done, and then we just have this constant hitting the brakes over and over again. And so people start losing that feeling as if we can actually accomplish anything. Anybody who comes to Erie from anywhere else says that we got everything going for us. Why can't we finally get things done?
Bob Mursky.
I would just like to say, first off, Erie is a test market for a lot of products, and the reason is we have a skepticism in this community, and sometimes we take our healthy skepticism and we take it a little too far, and I think one of the things that have amplified it is social media and this groupthink of people talking down on the city and speaking down on the region. And we have some points of light, though. You know, we have groups like the group that made the My Erie video, and we have people like Beth Zimmer at Innovation Collaborative who are doing good things in the community. And the work that Lisa Austin's doing, quite frankly. There's good things going on in the community, and many of these candidates up here, there's good things going on in this community. We focus on the wrong things in this community. So moving forward, I think it's up to the mayor to highlight, and the county executive, quite frankly, to highlight the things that are important and the things that we value. Because what happens is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you keep saying that you're bad, if you keep saying that Erie's in decline, if you keep saying that you're appalled with Erie, then that's what's going to happen, is people are going to start believing it. So moving forward, you need a leader who's going to be optimistic, positive, and look for the possibilities. I believe in the power of possibility, and we need to move this community forward with an uplifting message.
Steve Franklin, again, the question, why are we our own worst critics?
We have to be. We have to be able to criticize ourselves. We have to know where we're going to set the bar. We have to challenge ourselves so we can get better at the things that we want to do. I've always given the citizens of Erie a lot of credit. It's not so much the problems we have as it is our resilience and how we respond to them. And we've always done that in a great way. So because of that, we have a great community, and we have to be our own challengers.
Joe Schember.
I think we're our own worst critics because such a large percentage of us have never lived anywhere else. It's something like 80% of the people that live in the city have never lived anywhere else. People that have moved here as adults learn to value what we have. I sat next to a senior executive from Penelec at a meeting down at the convention center. It was a dinner meeting. And during the meeting, he said to me, he's from Cleveland. He said, Cleveland would kill to have a bay and peninsula like we've got here. And we don't appreciate it because it's always been there. What we need is these people from out of the area to show us what we've got and then start working together, because I think that's our biggest problem as a community. We don't work together. We protect our turf. We have the silo mentality. We need to work together for the good of Erie.
Alney Clerkin.
Yeah, I agree. I know I don't do social media, tweet, or anything like that, but I think it's going to be important that the mayor's office has an expert in that shares information, accurate information via those outlets, and that our website is up to date. Because if people want to know about Erie, and even our own residents, I go to the website at the city and I can't find what I need. And nothing's on there to promote what we do and what we do well. So I think I would love to be that voice to promote Erie beyond our region, but also within our region and the people here at home. We have at the Playhouse, we just won at States. for a theater competition. We won at regionals for a theater competition, and we're going to nationals in June. And because of that, the people, the way they talk about us outside of Erie is unbelievable. And they make me think the grass isn't greener. We have great things here in Erie, not only the natural resources, we're rated A+ for amenities. I mean, that's wonderful, so we have to promote each other. The fact, too, that the Erie Reader and the Erie Times News are doing things on the front page that are positive stories or above the fold, this is great stuff. And I think we need them to continue to do that, so we start believing in ourselves.
Lisa Austin.
I think that part of the reason we're our own worst enemy is because we haven't had a community college. I think that's part of the reason people, when they get the further education, they travel beyond. I think a lot of people, as Joe Schember has mentioned, don't travel or haven't lived anywhere else. But I find students haven't even been to Cleveland or Buffalo or Pittsburgh. The other thing I think is huge is that we've made bad decisions over and over again because we've not had a city planner or anybody who really understands planning expertise as we've made decision after decision to move the buses off of State Street, close Division Street, et cetera. And so I think that there's this, so I think that's part of it, is that we're not utilizing the things that we have. Lastly, I just want to comment that there's such an energy now, the film that was already mentioned, but a recent one by Tom Weber and Abdullah Washington called 1000, which had very short little blips about different things that were happening in Erie, many of which I knew, but some of which I had no idea. So I think we need to really celebrate and communicate what is good here, and I think that films like that should be on our city website.
Thank you. Joe Schember, this next question impacts every individual in this room. Why are the city streets so bad?
I think it has to do with the time of the year we're in. We go through a rough winter, and they've been particularly rough recently because we get snow, and then we get warm weather, it thaws.
But weather aside, let's get beyond that, because this city is full of potholes.
Yeah, and they have to wait for the asphalt plants to be up to really repave. They put temporary patches in. I think the city works hard to try to make our streets good. But you're right, they're not. We got to find a way, I guess, to do more, which means we need more money, we need more employees, we need more vehicles.
Because it snows every winter here, we know that.
It does, absolutely. It absolutely does, yeah.
Steve Franklin, why are the roads so bad?
Well, I just had a conversation the other day, going door to door. I talked with a gentleman on the Upper West Side. He was out mowing his lawn, and we started to talk, and one of the things he brought up to me was that on his particular street, he has not seen a plow. He has not seen paving. He has not seen any kind of street cleaning. They don't want to fix anything, according to him. And he says it's been like that for the entire 30 years that he's lived up there. I don't know whether that's true or not. But you can understand the frustration in the people when they say, I haven't seen it, therefore I don't trust the government to take care of that. I don't believe that's going to happen. So that's why we don't have this buy-in to Erie Refocused yet. They don't believe that we're going to be able to do what we say we're going to do. So, you got to convince people that you're being truthful and you're going to take care of what they want you to take care of.
Jay Brenneman.
As a mayor, I think the two top things that you have to take care of is violence and potholes, I guess. But, honestly, I don't know why the roads are so bad. Honestly, I don't know what the city hall is doing with the money or the paving plan or what streets they have priorities over. I think that some of the complaints might be just because there is no discussion with the neighborhoods and City Hall as far as not as robust as it should be when streets are going to be paved, how they're going to be paved, what kind of condition do they have to be in, having some sort of GPS tracker for potholes, those type of little simple technologies, reporting things online. So I think it's largely a perception of that lack of engagement between City Hall and how the roads are supposed to be paved. So I would like to know too, because I also live in the city and I am not a big fan of the potholes.
Ruby Jenkins' husband.
Now, I travel. I've been in other cities, and I've seen their streets. And I think Erie has some good streets. They have some good streets. Now, do we have challenges? Yes, we do. Of course we do. And one of the challenges is, as liaison to Public Works for many years while on council, there is an evaluation tool that is used, and they try to assess for safety issues and many tools that they use to come up with what priorities they're going to use and for what streets that priority is utilized. And when they do those potholes you call, it usually happens, it does happen when the weather breaks. You get those warm days, 70, and then you're back down to 40. So anytime you patch up the potholes, the cold patch, I believe it is, it pops out at the time you really need it to stay. But so we do that. And so I give you the little background to say that as the city is constantly working to improve its streets, and certainly it is that we are challenged by liquid fuels tax and other revenue we need to make it happen. But over the years, I came on council in 2000, the year 2000, and we had a major list of streets that had to be maintained. And I'm gonna tell you, it was a challenge, but we, in administration, worked hard to meet that maintenance.
Bob Mursky.
Well, I think that Erie streets are not unique. It's not like just in the city of Erie there's bad streets and then all of a sudden everyone else's are good. It's a problem with the whole Great Lakes region. And so when you look at paving, you have to understand we have our own paving crew and then we contract out to all the paving companies in town. You also have to understand there's only a short window in which you can pave. So April 1st, the asphalt plants start up with the hot asphalt, and then you have to stop when it starts to snow, which sometimes in Erie happens in October. And so you have to do it.
Mayor, can you stop that? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
wish I could. Lou Tullio might have been able to, but I can't. I think that moving forward, I believe in data-driven decision making, and so what I want to do is create an app like iBerg has in Pittsburgh, where you can take pictures of your potholes, report them to City Hall, and then we can map the data so that we're making decisions on where to pave based on where the most potholes are that are reported. That's the kind of innovation that we need, and that's the kind of relationship that we need with the taxpayers to make sure that we're making decisions based on data, not on politics, not because you are an influential person in town or because you gave money to somebody's campaign. We need to make decisions based on data, not on politics.
Lisa Austin.
We should definitely have, if it's possible, to have the underside of police cars, gathering data about where the potholes are. But the bigger question is why.
And how would you do that?
We have to look and see what the costing is for that, because it seems like the big data that you keep hearing about, it's like another way to speed up the process to share the information with Public Works. But really a simple thing is, what are they doing in Alaska? I used to drive around up there and we didn't have the potholes. So I want to call the mayor of Fairbanks and find out what they're using that's so different.
Almy Clarkin.
Yeah, I think I know nothing about asphalt, and there's experts that do. And our Public Works Department is it's a city priority, and that's one of our main goals. So we have to have the technology and the money and the expertise to do that. But I've also managed to figure out how to drive now, because you know how you adjust to what roads you can go on, so you kind of learn the potholes until they get fixed. I'm not sure that's a good thing, but that's what I do to get to work, my short distance. But no, I was kind of kidding, and you didn't think that was funny. So
So we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah. No. But not being an expert, but Doug Mitchell is, and the people there are, and if it's this much of a priority, I'm sure people call in, and based on data and information from the public, we should know where the priorities are, and we should take care of those.
Steve, if I can interject for 1 second, too. Sure. I think the audience needs to understand, too, that some streets are maintained by PennDOT, like 12th Street, 38th Street, 26th Street, and so those main drags that most people drive on are actually maintained by PennDOT, not by the city of Erie. And so oftentimes the money's not coming from PennDOT, and PennDOT paves those, not the city. And so that's something I wanted the audience to be aware of as well.
Well, I drive on 7th Street, so that's where my house is. So that's what I'm worried about, too. So
Call it in.
We'll find out who the mayor of Fairbanks is and give them a call. Jay Brenneman, are you prepared for possible job losses at GE in the future and the possibility that GE may someday leave our community?
I don't think anybody's prepared because we don't have a community college. That's something that they fought for, and the unions there have fought for, and that they have endorsed. And that's something that I have. When I went door to door with my son Eli, he's 5 years old. Last fall, before I decided to commit to running for mayor, I went on a listening tour throughout the neighborhoods, and I've talked to several employees who work at GE, and they told me that they're kind of feeling the inevitable, but at the same time, they say that the best tool that they could have is a community college. Also, I just met one this morning who's an entrepreneur now, and wishes that there was more resources like that to help him, in order to get to an earlier start, so there wasn't so many fumbling at the begin with that. So it's something that we have to have those type of resources like a community college so that we're prepared for that. But also, in my general thought is that, do we really appreciate GE? We talked about high-speed rail to Pittsburgh. We're a city that we owe a lot of our growth and current position to GE, but we don't have any light rail or anything like that in the city of Erie. So I think it's kind of silly that, could you imagine a customer for GE flying into Erie and then just driving to a locomotive plant and there's no light rail or no trains to get there? And also when it comes to, it's silly. And so I think
so what are you proposing?
I think eventually, just like we can't do a new city hall right now, we can't do a tunnel right now, but that's something we need to work towards, and we need to do the same thing with light rail in the city of Erie, connecting some of the key the neighborhoods and also some of our resources, and even up and just down State Street. If you pull up the pavement from State Street and Peachtree, there's still rail underneath there. And yeah, it's not something we could do today, but again, do we really appreciate GE? Has anybody ever gone to them and asked, hey, could you help us out? Just do this one little light rail project.
How would you pay for it?
That's what we would ask them. They gave how many millions of dollars to the school district? I think that and they have the type of resources for that. I guess if City Hall went to them and said, we want to highlight the fact that you're here, and we want to kind of show that. So help us find the funding for that. And again, they make hundreds of millions of dollars a quarter. I'm sure that they would be happy to do that. We could probably work some mutual matching with other businesses and private investors.
Again, Steve Franklin, are you prepared for possible further job losses at General Electric and even the possibility that they may leave our community?
I kind of remember having this conversation similar to this back when IP was here. And it was the same conversation. Are you prepared for the departure of International Paper if they leave? Obviously, they left. Kaiser Aluminum, another one, they left. I think it's inevitable GE is going to probably pull out of the Erie community at some point in time. We're being realistic here.
How do you stop that?
What we need to do, well, I'm not sure if you can stop it. GE is a global company. If they decide to move, I'm not sure how much Erie can do to make them stay here. What we need to do, though, is we need to prepare for the eventual loss of those jobs and how we're going to replace those workers into different jobs, how we can relocate them to good-paying jobs similar to what they had out of GE. So we have to make that kind of contingency plan to make sure that these workers are not just thrown out onto the street, put into the jobless ranks, and end up impacting our community even more.
But to be clear, you think it is inevitable that GE at some point may leave our community?
I see more indicators that they're going to leave eventually than I do that they're going to change their mind and stay.
Joe Schember.
I'm not willing to accept that GE leaving our community is inevitable. They certainly have gone down from about 35,000 employees back in the 60s to about 35 or 3,000 now. But what I would do as mayor to try to prevent that is work with the Lawrence Park elected officials. GE is actually in the Lawrence Park municipality. Work together with them as mayor of Erie to meet with GE officials, talk to them. They're in Chicago now. Their leadership isn't even at the GE plant here. They were moved to Chicago. I would be willing to travel with Lawrence Park officials to Chicago to have conversations, and the basic question would be, what can we do to help you not only stay in Erie, but expand what you do here? What can we as government officials do? That's what I would do, Steve.
Almy Clerkin.
Yeah, I hope it's not inevitable, and absolutely I would be on the first train to Chicago to speak with the leadership there. Hopefully people with the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership can go with us and some of the GE leaders that are here and see what their plans are. What can they tell us about their long-range plan? We have a friend that works at GE now. She works 3 weeks here and 1 week in Cincinnati. So jobs are moving, of course. Then we have another friend that just got promoted here. and he'll be here for quite a while, he believes. So I think that we need to talk to them, and then I think we need to prepare, working with, as Jay mentioned, the community college to fill the jobs that we have in other places as well, so, and get prepared for these people, if they're going to lose their jobs, that they'll have an option to continue to study something else. Our small and medium businesses, we have to support them. We have wonderful, eds and meds and technology. We need to build those jobs, and our entrepreneurs and our innovators, we need to get them moving on plans and job plans too, so that when and if that does happen, that blow will not be so devastating.
Bob Mursky, would you agree with Steve Franklin that GE, it may be inevitable that they would leave here?
No.
So what's your plan? How do you prevent it?
Well, I don't think anything's inevitable. I mean, what we need to do, I think, first off, as I listen to business owners across this community, one of the things that they complain about is that we have a myopic focus on the big businesses in town and the big industries, and nobody's talking with the medium-sized and the small businesses. And one of the complaints that they have is we throw money at the shiny new object. If a business wants to come to town, we all fawn over them, and we find all these state dollars and tax breaks for them, but nobody's working with the people here. I believe to strengthen the economy, to anticipate GE either shrinking or leaving town, what we need to do is, number one, strengthen the jobs that we have here. Number two, build confidence in our economy in this area so that entrepreneurs feel confident enough to start a business. And then the third point is look for businesses that we can draw into town that work with the businesses that we have here. For example, we have a big plastics industry, so maybe we could attract a resin plant. With the cracker plant that's coming in, one of the byproducts is a resin. So maybe we can bring a resin plant to town. These are the types of things that we need to do moving forward. But I would like to make one point. City Council is not going to sponsor the community college. The county council is going to sponsor the community college. So the vote has to come from county council. At any time they can take that vote. So we're up here discussing a community college. Really, the county's going to be the one sponsoring it. So we got to make sure that, I just wanted everyone to know, the county's going to be the host for that community college.
But doesn't the mayor have to take a lead in that?
I think the mayor takes a supporting role and leads the community, but I also believe that if we're going to create a community college, it can't just fall on the backs of city taxpayers. So it's got to be a shared regional vision.
Ruby Jenkins' husband, again, respond to the question about GE, and are you prepared for the possibility of the plant either further eroding jobs or closing down?
I'm not prepared for the possibility of more jobs being lost. We need jobs here in this city.
So should you be prepared?
Well, I think we should be proactive. I think we should be proactive. And I believe that as the mayor and the leader, to talk with the GE officials, to say now, talk now, to say what are their plans for the future. Sometimes we may find out that maybe we could help with that plan. If it means resources, working with the state programs or with the state officials, we don't know. But we always need to have that dialogue with the companies. And let me share something too. I remember the Elm Street Plaza. We talk about job loss. One by one, retail left that plaza. I think Hill's department store was the last to leave. And I received calls from constituents, and I started writing letters to retailers, people who might want to locate in Erie. Some 3 years later, Walmart decided to locate. I was very excited about that project, by the way. Some 300 jobs we have now. People are working, families have those jobs. But it all started because I asked the questions. Would you like to locate to Erie? And I think, again, that question was answered. We now see Walmart on Elm Street. So that's why I'm encouraged by the fact that leaders reach out and ask the questions.
Lisa Austin.
I think that we do have to consider that as a possibility. I will do everything I can do to prevent it. I love the idea of showcasing in the city itself the whole idea of light rail. There's an obvious connection between, say, Penn State and downtown Erie with the innovation district that's growing. I also want to comment that we have a rail. I've taken the train to New York City, and it's very frustrating because there's no place to park if you have to get dropped off and then picked up in the middle of the night. But I also want to say, in preparation for this possible eventuality, we need to really be addressing job creation in other areas. And you don't want us to talk too much about our platform, but it involves making things, expanding on the manufacturing, also dealing with high tech, and that's a potential area. And then the tourism. We have 5 million people living in the region of Cleveland, Buffalo, Pittsburgh.
Thank you. We have time for one more question and then your closing statement. And let me begin with Almy Clerkin. Now, regardless of what you do as mayor, your decisions may very well anger your core constituency, the base that elected you. Are you prepared to do that?
Prepared to make them angry?
Prepared to make the tough decisions?
Oh, make the tough decisions, yes, absolutely. Because everyone will know what the process was. And I'm a huge fan of getting input. I'm a we, not me leader. I'm also a huge fan of getting input from people that might not necessarily be involved in that particular issue, so we get a different point of view and different perspective. So as the leader of Erie, you will know why the decision was made, but you will have been a part of it, a part of the major decisions.
Joe Schember, are you prepared to make tough decisions, even angering your constituents?
I'm not only prepared, I believe the next mayor has to make tough decisions. It's got to be a top priority. When I was on city council, we'd be sitting around talking about issues. And like Almy, I like to hear all diverse opinions and then choose the best one. I would do that in the city council boardroom, and I would say, here's what I think we should do. And a couple of my cohorts would turn and say to me, Joe, you can't do that or no one would re-elect you. And I would say, I'm not here to be re-elected. I'm here to do what's best for Erie. And that's the bottom line for me as mayor. I want to know all the opportunities, all the options that we have, but bottom line, I'll be making the decisions best for Erie. And if that means I don't get reelected, I'll accept that because I'm going to do what's best for Erie.
Jay Brenneman.
You know, my time in the Army, I spent 6.5 years in the Army, 2.5 in Iraq. I've been responsible for hundreds of people, high op tempos, a lot of rough environments, of course, if anybody's been to Iraq, and also being in healthcare, if anybody's also worked in healthcare. In both cases, I've led teams of people from the Army being the most diverse organization in the world, people from all walks of life, all ages, working with them to come up with group decisions as a team, despite people would have different disciplines where they come from, the different training that they come from, infantry, military intelligence, communications engineers, and those type of things. And then in the healthcare realm, where I've ran a countywide healthcare program, where I was responsible for directing over a dozen healthcare professionals, social workers, PT, OT, physician and nurse practitioners, et cetera, to come up with a group decision. So what it comes down to is it isn't just the mayor or somebody just waiting for a decision to get to their table and making it. You will, if you empower the people, if you empower people in the neighborhoods to be part of the decision, to be part of the conversation, you'll find you'll have a lot less angry people because the decision is the teams, the decision is the communities. It isn't just you in the back room or in a boardroom making a decision without them.
Thank you. Steve Franklin.
Thank you. You know, being a leader is all about doing what you have to do. Having a choice is not a privilege, it's a right. To make sure that you do the right thing. As a leader in the police department, I was a supervisor for 22 years. A lot of tough decisions had to be made. As the chief, the last 7.5 years, had to make some tough decisions, very tough decisions. As a leader, you are expected and you have a responsibility to make sure that you act in the interest of everyone that's concerned.
Bob Mursky.
The short answer is yes. When I was elected to city council, my father gave me some good advice, and he said, make decisions that you can put your head on the pillow at night with a clean conscience. And that's how I've led, and that's how I'll continue to lead as mayor. Regardless if it's 1 term, 2 terms, or 3 terms, we have to do the right thing moving forward, and that's what I'll do.
Ruby Jenkins' husband, are you prepared to make tough decisions, even angering your constituents, your base of support?
I made tough decisions. 12 years serving on city council, 2 terms as president, and also past chair of council's finance committee. So each time we have a vote, there's a tough decision. You know, and I always like to do my research, especially when you're voting or have policy issues that come before you. I like to hear from the citizens, get their input too, in that evaluation. But at the end of the day, you had one vote to make and one decision to make. So yes, I think I know I'm ready to make those decisions. And those tough, I've already made them, and I know that there's many that lie ahead. But I wanted to share with you, I always knew how my decision affected the public because I got phone calls after the meeting. But we understand that that's why you're in the leadership role. That's why you make the decision. So yes, I'm willing to do that.
So as mayor, your phone number will be still listed?
It's still listed. It was listed then, yes, that's a good question. It was listed then, and you still can find me in the phone book if you can find the phone book.
Lisa Austin.
Yes, I'm willing to make tough decisions. I think the biggest thing that has been a problem is a lack of transparency. I know that I went to a meeting at the, it was the Martin Luther King Center, and there was a lot of concern about the new code enforcement officer who had written tickets to over 300 of the 400 homes that he'd listed. And the point that I'm making here is that not against code enforcement, but there was no transparency about what are the rules anyway about your house, and spending some time sharing it. So in other words, I think that people are willing to accept tough decisions if they understand the process by which they were made.
Did I mention this book makes a great Father's Day and Mother's Day present? At the conclusion of the book, and this is a chance for you to give your closing comments, Bill Garvey quotes J.F. Downing, who was a leader in this community a century ago, and he posed this question: the best is yet to be. So, Lisa Austin, I'll begin with you. How do you take Erie for the best that's yet to be?
From the moment I got here, I could see the city's potential. Going down 12th Street with the industrial buildings, the bayfront, and the more I've been here, I see so much potential with the arts and the culture and there's just so much. It's a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful place to create a business. It's it's happening. It's already happening. You can feel it now. So the question that you're asking, I think that is just, it's a matter of seeing the vision, stating the vision, pulling people close, and empowering people. And that's really what I've been doing the last 10 years, is finding potential and trying to help catalyze it.
Almy Clerkin, your closing comment on that question.
Can you repeat it one more time? Sorry.
J.F. Downing said the best is yet to be. How do you take Erie there?
Wow. 11 years ago, the Playhouse asked that I would be the leader and transform the organization, and I did that. And I believe I can do that for Erie, too. So if I can do that for Erie, then the best will be here. And then I believe my job, just like I did at the Playhouse, was to get it ready for the next generation. So as mayor, whether it's 4, 8, 12 years, I will get it ready for the next generation, so they have a better home to live in than you and I do. I think it's important, too, that the things we talked about, the qualities of a mayor, good communication and visibility and transparency and working with others and collaborating, those are all important things that we can get this work done. And it is our job to prepare Erie for the next generations. We can't afford to lose a generation, and right now, we're failing them. So if we can get it ready for them, we will be the best, and then they can take it and make it better.
Joe Schember.
A champion is someone who fights on behalf of someone else. I'll give a voice to those in Erie who feel no one is listening. I'll be a champion for our children who deserve a good education and fair state funding. You realize of 500 school districts in Pennsylvania, Erie is 495 in terms of what we get per student. I'll be a champion for our immigrants and refugees who come here, work hard, raise their families, and are the hardest workers. I'll be a champion for our neighbors. I'll help them make their neighborhoods safe, thriving, and distinctive. I'll be a champion for addicted friends and family. That's a crisis nobody talks about. Do you realize over 100 people in Erie County died last year from overdoses, and we're on a pace this year to double that? I'll be a champion for our residents in terms of taxes. We need to expand the tax base, not raise taxes. I'll be a champion for existing businesses and new businesses coming to town. The role of government is to create an environment where businesses can thrive and create good family-sustaining jobs. I'll be a champion for our core, the downtown, Bayfront, the East and West Bayfront neighborhoods, to make them world-class. I'll be a champion for our entire region, not limited by the city limits, but looking at the entire region and how we can do more together. As mayor, I will be your champion.
Steve Franklin, again, that question, the best is yet to be. In your closing comment, how do you take Erie there?
I take that as hope, as motivation. I take it as a challenge. The rise to the occasion, that if I'm elected mayor, to rise to that occasion and make sure that I do everything I can for the citizens of Erie. That's what I would be elected for, and that's what I would want to do, to serve the people of Erie. I've done it for over 30 years. I enjoy doing it. I look forward to trying to do it again, to do everything I can to make Erie the community that it should be.
Thank you. Jay Brenneman, how do you take us there?
Through our children. I'm so glad to hear that, throughout this campaign that many of my opponents support stronger funding and more resources for our young people. As the father of a public school student, that really warms my heart. I think the way that we're going to get to it is by having a mayor who's going to not only go to Harrisburg and try to convince the legislators down there to do their jobs and to properly fund our underfunded school districts, but we need a mayor who's going to go around the state to the other underfunded districts, who's going to talk to those elected officials and say, join me, because Harrisburg might be able to ignore you, they might be able to ignore me, but they can't ignore all of us. Next, our young people, again, we have our biggest challenges are also our biggest opportunity. We have the comprehensive plan that if we implement it right, and if we engage and empower and provide a specific mission for our young people to rebuild our neighborhoods, rebuild our parks, if we give them that mission, make them part of the solution, that is how we'll turn Erie around. That's how the next chapter is written. That's how the story is completed. We can't do it by ourselves. We can't do it from up high on a dais or behind a desk. We have to do it by empowering that next generation, because if we can't do that, then we will fail. And as your next mayor, I guarantee you, because my children depend upon it, your children and grandchildren depend upon it, our entire community depends upon it, that I will take that mission very seriously, and I will work with everybody until we accomplish that mission.
Ruby Jenkins' husband.
I see the next 5, 10, 12 years as a city on the move, a city that has transformed itself. When you go down the 12th Street corridor, you'll see businesses that are up and running. When you go downtown Erie, you will see job innovations, new jobs. New businesses are going to locate here. And then we'll see our Bayfront with the new businesses that are going to be planned for expansion on the Bayfront. We've already seen the announcement of investments that's going to happen for the Bayfront. And then you will see our wonderful communities, our healthy communities. Healthy communities give people confidence and hope, and they reinvest and they want to invest because they see that things have begun to turn around. Then, as the mayor and leader, I would market Erie. I will go out and I'll champion our cause. I'll talk about the place to be. I'll talk about it on a state level. Then from the state, they will hear about Erie on a global level. And then they'll read about us in the USA Today. And they'll say, I know a town called Erie. It's on the move. Let's be there. I want you to be there, and I want you to know that I'll take Erie there. Thank you very much.
Bob Mursky.
The best is yet to come. You know, when I started my first campaign 5 years ago for city council, I ran and I said, Erie is great because of its people. And 5 years later, I believe that now more than ever. Sure, we have our challenges. All communities do. And I understand how interwoven our challenges and our solutions are. That's why I started a neighborhood watch program. That's why I started a farmer's market. And that's why I started the Gentlemen's Club, a youth mentoring program at East High School. And it's why I sought public office, to be part of the solution by facing the challenges head on. And that's why I want to be your mayor. I've always pushed for progress with a vision for this city that is aspirational and attainable. and I'm not going to stop now. I've always pushed for progress, and with a new agenda to make Erie the best city we know it can be, we can transform this city. We can make it a better place to live, a better place to work, and a better place to raise our families. And by helping our kids succeed, helping businesses grow, and keeping our families safe, we can create a new Erie, an Erie of promise and possibility. I'm Bob Mursky, and I'm asking for your vote because the best is yet to come.
So on behalf of Erie Reader and WQLN and the Jefferson Educational Society, to all of you, we want to thank Bob Mursky, Ruby Jenkins' husband, Jay Brenneman, Steve Franklin, Joe Schember, Almy Clerkin, and Lisa Austin. To all of you for participating tonight, we thank you.
Welcome to the Jefferson Educational Society. For those of you that do not know me, I am the program director, Ben Spagan. I would give a tremendously long introduction for Steve Scully, but many of you are here for the first debate, so I'll skip it and say that he's one of our favorite people. He is a renowned Erieite, one of Erie's favored, if not most favorite sons. So we are happy to have him up here for this debate. And in case you don't watch C-SPAN as often as I do, he is, I can assure you, one of the most, if not the most busiest men in Washington, and one of the most well-respected journalists, so we are lucky to have him here tonight. We are about to begin the Republican portion of tonight's debate. I want to ask all of you in the audience to join me real quickly in taking out your mobile devices, putting them on silent or in airplane mode out of courtesy for tonight's candidates, our moderator, and your fellow patrons. I do want to thank the organizations partnering tonight to make tonight possible with us here at the Jefferson Educational Society. We have the Erie Reader as well as WQLN Public Media. I do want to say that none of the organizations have endorsed any of the candidates running for mayor in the primary, and one of the reasons that we do have Mr. Scully here tonight is that all questions have originated with him. They are his alone. We do not know them until he asks them. We are in the same boat as the candidates, but we're not up here on stage. I want to give the stage over now to our two candidates. We have John Whaley and John Persinger, two Republicans vying to become Erie's next mayor. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for doing this. So John Persinger, let me begin with you. What is the biggest difference between you and your Republican opponent?
The biggest difference between myself and my Republican opponent and everyone else in the field, experience, vision, energy, and leadership skills. I'm the only candidate in this race who's worked in the White House, the only candidate in this race who's worked in the chief of staff role at a U.S. embassy. I'm a business attorney. I've worked on business deals, a billion-dollar deal involving companies in 6 different countries. No one else has that broad range of experience. No one else will bring that experience, that vision, that energy, that leadership skills to the mayor's office.
And how will that experience allow you to make sure that the streets are clean, the potholes are fixed, and the community is working?
From my experience working at the embassy, I had to work with a number of different governmental agencies. It wasn't just State Department employees, Department of Defense, FBI, DEA, Department of Agriculture. We had to have everyone on the same page when we were working to get things done. That will lead me to reach out to all of our different departments within the city, all of our different departments at the county level, surrounding municipalities, state representatives, federal representatives, to make sure that we are coordinated in our effort, that our resources are being spent efficiently, and then we are tackling all these problems that you've mentioned and some of the bigger problems together.
John Whaley, same question. The biggest difference between you and your opponent?
Political will is number 1 on my list, and 2, I was the chief of staff for the current mayor, Joe Sinnott. I was hired in 2006 to assist and be his chief of staff, and it was clear early on that there were going to be philosophical differences in how he wanted to run the city and how I felt that things could be done. So we parted ways. And all of the things that I'm for today, I was for back then and wasn't allowed to do. So I've worked in City Hall, I've been in every office, I've examined the budget, I've sat in budget sessions. I know some things that need to be done, and I think I'm far more prepared to run the city. I've managed hundreds of people. I currently own 4 businesses. I'm the only business owner of all the mayoral candidates. And I'll go back to political will.
Let me go to the reality that it's been, 40 years since this community has elected a Republican mayor. John Whaley, how do you get elected in the general election?
There are a couple paths to win. I think that even if the strongest Democratic candidate wins the primary, people are engaged, people care. They came out for Republican candidates in higher offices. So if they hear the right message, and they actually hear a message and they hear details and they don't hear bullet points, I think the average person knows the city's in bad shape. They live it, they see it. I think they're tired of it. So if they can, if I beat John and I'm around for the next 5 months, I'm going to get my message out, and I think strong Dems are going to say, you know what, at this level it doesn't matter. I don't care about death penalty, abortion, things like that. I want my roads cleaned. I want people arrested. I want the heroin to slow down, and I think John's got the better ideas.
And John Persinger, let me be clear, it's been more than 50 years since a Republican's been elected mayor of the city of Erie, so how do you do that?
Isn't it time for a change? I think everyone here recognizes that. I think everyone out in the neighborhoods where I go door to door every day recognizes that. They see the city in the last 50 years. They've seen it on a steady decline. They look around the city today. They see an underfunded school system. They see nearly 7,000 blighted properties. They see violence, open gun shootings in the middle of the day. They see record number of overdoses, and they see jobs and businesses leaving town every other day. And they recognize that these problems, they didn't pop up overnight. We've been on this steady decline for some time now. But what they're looking for the best candidate. These issues that I just mentioned, those aren't Republican issues. They're not Democratic issues. Those are Erie issues, and they want the best candidate for the job. So I think people are going to look for who's the best candidate for the job. And the best candidate has the best experience, has the best vision, best energy, best vision to get the job done.
John Whaley, in the past debate with the Democrats, some referred to the current mayor as the invisible mayor. What are the lessons from the last 12 years of what not to do?
Oh, don't be invisible, don't hide, get out in front of problems. So last week there was
Let me stop. The mayor's hiding? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. There was a shooting 4 days ago in a nightclub downtown. The person died yesterday. Have not seen him on TV. I don't see him on the front page of the paper. I don't see the press conference where he says, I've got this. I'm in charge. Here's what we're going to do. Here's why it's not going to happen again.
As somebody who's worked with him, why?
He would tell you he's shy. He's a shy person. But he does enjoy karaoke, and he enjoys his motorcycle ride at Roar on the Shore. So he's not that shy. I think confrontation is not his big issue, or his big, he doesn't like it. And if you hide in your office and you don't talk to the paper and you give one-word answers to the TV, they stop coming around. They stop asking you. They give up. People don't see you at city council meetings. They don't see you anywhere. They give up. And I think he's mastered that. And the next mayor has to stop that and be at city council meetings. Not just go to the Erie Club picnic once a year, but go out and meet people. Let them come up to the office. And I've said I'd take the office off the 5th floor. I'd move it down to the 1st floor so people can come in, ask for me. There'd be some set times, obviously there's boundaries, but you don't need to be on the 5th floor with a walnut bathroom. You can just come down and be part of the people, and you should be in trucks, you should be in cop cars, you should be on fire trucks.
Has he been the invisible mayor?
I don't think he's been as gauged as he could be. When I was working at the MC, I made a point of walking around every day and going to the different departments. It wasn't a regularly scheduled or formal appointment. It was just being out there, being present, being visible, asking the different departments, what are they working on? What are their issues? What are they concerned about? How can the ambassador and I help you? That's what the mayor should be doing, going out into the streets, meeting with the residents, meeting with the businesses, and going to places like Harrisburg and to DC and to our big companies that are here, Lord, and GE, and UPMC, and asking those same questions. What are you working on? What are you concerned about? What are you worried about? How can we in Erie help you so that you can contribute more to Erie so that the city will thrive again?
So let's talk about specifics, and if we could get off any talking points, to ask you specifically, how do you stop the brain drain? How do you keep your generation, young people in this city, to stay and grow? What would you do specifically?
I'd specifically work with our local universities here who have unique programs. I'm fortunate because I've got a great job at McDonnell-Dillig, and I can work with businesses all over the world. From my desk, I've dealt with trademark issues in Mexico and Germany. And at the end of the day, I get in my car, and in 6 minutes, I'm home. That's a great opportunity that you can't find in other cities. I recognize that there are a lot of young people who don't have the same work opportunities that I have being here. What we can be doing, and what I've been doing, working with institutions like Mercy Hearst's intelligence program, Gannon's risk management and insurance program, Barron's plastic program, so that we can create more job opportunities for those students who are specializing in those programs. Those programs are unique to anywhere else in the world. And so if we have those students involved in those programs, we can get more businesses here that are working with those programs that'll keep young people here, give them a reason to stay here.
John Whaley, same question. Specifically, how do you stop the brain drain?
All right, I think I'm going to use an analogy of a dinner party at your house. Before you invite people over, before you expect your friends to come and stay and have a good time, you have to get the house ready, you have to clean it up, you have to prepare the food, you have to do all these things. We are years away, no matter who wins next year on January 2nd, years away from stopping the brain drain. We've got to fight the crime, pave the streets, get rid of the blight, help Erie Insurance come in, build their buildings, hope some of those 1,000 people that are coming in want to stay in the city. But they won't want to stay if there's high taxes, poor services, poor schools, et cetera. So really, really down-to-earth answers of we're going to pave the streets, we're going to plow the streets, we're going to listen to the citizens. When we arrest somebody for a gun crime, we're going to work with the DA to make sure he gets the maximum sentence, not the minimum, et cetera. I'm not ready January 2nd next year to go out and say, hey, Gannon, let's figure out how to keep people to stay here. I'm going to work with Gannon and talk to them, but really got to do some basics first and get some things done. And then organically, I think things happen. People just didn't decide to move to Brooklyn because the mayor of New York City said Brooklyn's cool. It really bottomed out, rents went down, funky people started moving in, then when they moved in, they needed restaurants, et cetera. It was all organic. It wasn't premeditated and it wasn't done by the government. So we just take care of our job, other things will follow.
Let's talk about Erie Refocus, because one of the line items in that is for the last 50 years, city officials have, quote, managed the city's decline. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I agree that local officials have managed the decline, and that's what I've talked about from day one.
So how do you change the trajectory?
Change the trajectory, I think, by doing three things. One, you invest in education. We have to have a great school system here in the city so people want to move here, so people want to live here, so they want to invest here. Second thing we do, we clean up the city. We have to give people the confidence to live here and to move here and to invest here. So we get rid of the blighted properties, we get rid of the violence. Three, we have to fight for Erie's future. Instead of fighting each other over EMTA board seats, we have to have local officials who are working together, who are collaboratively and creatively trying to figure out ways to tackle our problems. And we've also got to be adapting to the future. This is 2017, and it's an embarrassment that if you go downtown, you have to fish around for quarters just to pay your parking meter. You should be able to use a credit card and a debit card. And that, by the way, that's 2008 technology. 2017 technology would be paying with your smartphone. So the city should be adapting to these changes so that we're no longer managing the decline, but we've got a growing city, a thriving city, a booming city.
John Whaley.
I agree with everything John said, but to do that, the first day on the job, I'm going to change the culture of City Hall. I'm going to change the culture that the employees see and look up to. I'm going to change the culture that citizens are used to seeing. I'm going to go in and not a tie, and I'm going to work, and I'm going to work hard. I'm going to appoint department heads who live in the city and are experts at what they do, not people that I went to high school with. I've mentioned before, if I win, I will offer almost every single candidate for mayor a job in my administration. They're smart, they live in the city, they're good people. So I think we need the right people in the right jobs. One of the things I've talked about, and there's dozens of them if you go to my website, we have 6 people in the real estate tax collection office. Second day there, I'd start outsourcing that. We can give it to Berkheimer, we can do it more effectively, we can do it cheaper, and we can gather more taxes each year. And if we save $200,000 in that office, it goes in the bank. Then we have money to do the refocus plan. Right now, we have no money to do anything. So they're going to see a mayor that's out of the office, walking around, working. Every employee in the city of Erie can work harder, can work better. Their job book doesn't say you get to work 3 hours a day and take a nap. We're all going to work really hard. Citizens have to do their part, too. They have to learn not to throw their garbage out on the wrong day, not to put TVs out when you're not allowed to ever put a TV out, things like that. So we're going to ask for some reciprocal action back and forth. But I think a mayor that's not invisible, that's out, that's leading people is going to make a huge difference. And then all those things can happen.
Would you support a property tax increase to implement some of the Erie refocused agenda items?
No, not right off the bat, no. I think there's easily a couple $1 million that can be saved in streamlining city operations, in doing things different, do more competitive bidding. In the streets department, you can lease a reheating machine, and you can drive it down the street and reheat the pavement and put it back down. Cities across the country are using it. We've never even looked at it. So when we pave, we outsource some of it and we keep some of it in-house. We're going to do a make or buy decision. We're either going to do it or we're not going to do it. If we don't do it and the outside bidder doesn't, we save some money, and we're not pumping money into the pension fund. We're going to put more of that in the bank. So no, I'm not for a tax increase for streetscaping, things like that.
John Persinger, same question. Would you support a tax increase to implement Erie refocused?
No. You ask anyone who lives outside the city, who wants to move into the city, wants to live into the city, why they don't live in the city, they give you two reasons: schools and taxes. And those answers aren't new. People have been giving those answers for years now. So why aren't we tackling those two problems, schools and taxes? Well, we tackle schools, as I mentioned before, by making sure that our schools are funded, making sure that we have great schools here. We tackle taxes by getting our economy going again, so that more people are investing in the city, so that the revenues are coming in and we can eventually cut the taxes.
How does the city prepare for the not closing, but the transition of East and Strong Vincent, and what will that mean for the community down the road?
So the mayor doesn't have direct control over the school district.
I understand.
And that issue has been raised to me as I go door to door and I tell them that my number one issue is the school district. But I say to them, if you're thinking like that, then you're managing the decline. And I'm not interested in managing the decline. I'm interested in ending the status quo, ending the decline, and getting the city growing again. So the mayor has to be working with the superintendent, with the school board, with our teachers and our parents to make sure that if there is a consolidation, if and when, that it's going to be seamless, that the school district has the support of the city and the county, and that we can make sure that there's an easy transition for all of our students. We can't overlook the big picture here. And the big picture is making sure that our children have a great education.
Same question.
Again, the mayor doesn't have anything to do with it, but I think it's a positive that they do that.
But the mayor leads the city, so the mayor has to, even though they're not directly involved in the school district, the mayor's certainly involved in city schools.
Well, yes. So he could be in the paper saying, I approve it, I like it, and people, you shouldn't worry about it. I think the plan's going well, et cetera, like that. So again, he could lead and be in front of that. The issue that I would take to the school board now in this exact arena, they're going to close 2 schools, but keep all the principals and keep all the administrators and put them in central. So if you're a small enough community that you need 2 high schools, you don't need 4 high schools worth of principals and administrators. And if you don't do those hard choices, then when the city and the school district together go to Harrisburg and say, hey, we do need some fair funding, we can say, we have actually right-sized the district, we've got the right people in the right place. So I'd be a cheerleader, and I'd be out in front, and I'd meet with Brian Polito and whoever else, but I think it's a huge positive that they're downsizing, and they're doing it quickly.
Another point that came up in the previous debate is somewhere between 70 to 80% of the people who live in this community have never lived outside the Erie community. Why are we often our worst critics? John Persinger.
That's a great question. And honestly, I don't know the answer. I've lived all over the world: Boston, D.C., South Bend, Indiana, Australia. And my wife and I choose to be here because of the great potential of Erie. I mentioned just a few minutes ago, from my desk, I work with clients all over the world. And at the end of the day, I get on the elevator, call my wife, and tell her I will be home in 6 minutes. 6 minutes. You can't get that anywhere else in the world. And I know, because I've lived there. You also can't get a world-class bayfront. You can't have 3 professional sporting teams. You can't, for me personally, come home each day at the end of the summer and take your kids to Waldermere. That's a great opportunity that you don't get. I know there's some other parents in the audience who appreciate that. But that's great opportunities you don't have in other cities. So as part of changing the narrative here, first we have to change the leadership. We have to get new leaders elected who believe in the potential, who recognize that Erie's got great potential, and who are willing to shout that potential wherever it needs to be shouted. And then that starts a culture change that seeps down below.
John Whaley, again, why are Erieites often their worst critics?
I don't know that they are, in my opinion. I moved here in 1985, and I think Erie is very similar to what it was in 1985. I don't think they've moved out of the 80s. I've lived in Columbus, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Los Angeles. So I think I do bring another view of what can be, what it looks like, et cetera. And so many people have been beaten down and accepted. I think they might shrug their shoulders and say, well, it's Erie, what are you gonna do? The school district. So in that sense, I'd say they're a critic, but I think people that have never lived anywhere else think this is as good as it can be, and it's not. It's not even close. Is there a dreary Erie, mistake on the lake, those things? Do I think people beat themselves up and continue to use those poor sayings? Yeah, I think they do. But if you're the average person and you don't see growth in your job, growth in the schools, paved streets, you don't see leadership, all you hear is infighting, they can't even get the buses going after 18 months, you shrug your shoulders and you give up and you might become a critic too.
So based on that, John Whaley, one specific thing that you have done to make this city a better place. One.
There was a group called Erie Collab, got started about 2 years ago, and I joined that, and we made our mission to do things the city wasn't doing. So we got together on a Saturday, went down to the 14th Street at Peach Street's underpass, and we cleaned and painted and pulled weeds. We mowed the entire lot that at the time the Erie Redevelopment Authority owned, and it was just to really shove it up somebody's nose and say, listen, you're supposed to be doing that, not us. We're just citizens. Had my son down there. Somebody had their little girl down there. So we've done projects like that. So that's the first one I'm going to say. Erie Collab's still around. We get calls, hey, why don't you go do this? And at some point now we've kind of said, we're not suckers. We're not going to go clean every empty lot in town. Somebody else can do something. But we got in the paper, we got on TV, and we tried to set the bar and say, people get involved and do stuff.
Same question, one specific thing that you've done.
I've mentored young entrepreneurs and startup companies in the Erie Technology Incubator. A lot of our jobs depend on small businesses, new businesses, expanding, growing, reinvesting in Erie. It's been a great privilege and a great opportunity to volunteer my time and volunteer my legal services to some of these innovative companies that are housed in the Erie Technology Incubator. If we're going to worry about future growth in this community, we have to have those types of individuals in this community taking those risks, starting those businesses, investing in the city, and I wish we had more people volunteering to help out with those efforts, because it's a struggle to start a business. Anyone who's been in this audience, who's run a small business, who's started a business, knows how much of a struggle it can be. And so we have to give them all the support that we can to make sure that they're growing, they're expanding, and that they have the possibility to make a huge impact on our community.
There are three elements in Erie Refocused as they talk about a course correction. So I want to take each one individually. The first one is called right sizing, as you know, which is in part slimming or trimming down the surplus properties, the blighted properties in the city of Erie. First of all, do you agree with that? And if so, how would you do that? And if you disagree, explain why.
I agree with the fact that we need to remove the nearly 6,700 vacant or abandoned properties that are identified in the plan. It's obviously going to cost money. In the plan, I think it speaks about $10,000 to acquire each property and get rid of it. I spoke with an official from the City of Detroit Land Bank, and they had a cost of about $16,000. So maybe it's somewhere in between. You try to do, rounding up, 7,000 properties, $10,000 each, you're looking at $70 million. That's a huge expense. The city doesn't have those resources. So to start, the city can be working with those private institutions that are investing in the city. We have an estimated $500 million of investment that's going to go into downtown. Erie Insurance, VelocityNet, Gannon, Hammett, to name a few. The city should be working with those institutions and work in concentric circles out from where they are operating to start clearing some of those blighted properties. Then that starts a chain reaction, and you get more people investing in the city, more people moving into the city, increasing more revenue, and you also have at that point in time, an opportunity to make a great pitch to the state and federal government for funds, because you can show that the city's working together, the county's working together, the private sector's working together, and if the state and the federal government contribute, can make a huge impact.
John Whaley, same question. Right sizing, do you support the idea of doing this or not?
Oh, I do. There's a huge issue of how you're going to pay for it. I grew up in Warren, Ohio, and they've been right-sizing. They've probably torn down 15% of the houses, I believe the number is, in the city. And we don't have that many. I think the real number is about 500 that are truly abandoned and horrible. I would take those out. And again, I would use money that I saved from right-sizing city government to pay for that. I would try reverse auctions, put it out there, say we're going to knock these 5 houses down. Who wants to bid? Let's knock the price down. City doesn't use that technology currently. Maybe we can get the price under 10,000. But I think we need to work, we need to find people that will move here, and we can give them a house for free if they promise to fix it up. We can't take care of 7,000 houses. We have a redevelopment authority that was tasked with that. Because of the way it was staffed over the last 20, 30 years and appointees were put on there, it's bankrupt. It lives within City Hall, can't pay its own rent. Now we started a land bank. We don't need a land bank, we've got the redevelopment authority. So you can take houses and you can have a land bank with all kinds of land, but if nobody wants it, I think they're putting the cart before the horse there. We're a lot of talk about urban farming. I don't think we're ready for urban farming. That's not going to save the day. So I'd take out 500 houses where I could, and the rest, if they're owned by somebody, we'd use code enforcement. We'd use other laws on the books to try to get those folks to fix their own homes up. We can't take care of 5,000 houses.
The other two aspects, catching up after decades of disrepair and then keeping up, staying competitive. How do you do that?
That's going to be a huge effort. And again, it's going to have a mayor who's thinking creatively and collaboratively. It's not only with regards to these blighted properties, but it's also with regards to our infrastructure. The Buki plan, or at least his letter, Charles Buki's submission letter, talks about how our infrastructure is 40% more than what we need. So we need to be thinking about how do we remove or repurpose some of that infrastructure. There's talks in Washington, D.C. that there's going to be $1 trillion infrastructure bill. You would know better about this than we would here. But one question I would pose to our local officials, what are we doing now to position ourselves to benefit from some of that infrastructure bill money? Do we have a plan in place? Are we working collaboratively and creatively from a regional purpose? Are we working with other cities, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Cleveland, so that the federal government looks at us and says, they're working creatively and collaboratively, they've got local investments, they've got state investments, we're going to give some federal investments as well. And at that point in time, then we have the resources to tackle some of these problems. But right now, we're at a constraint because we don't have resources at hand.
According to Chuck Schumer, it's all going to New York, so there you go.
Well, that's a great point. So that's a great point. If it's going to New York, we're right on the New York line. Erie County borders New York. So if we had creative and collaborative local officials, they should be reaching out to the Buffalo representatives, the federal representatives, and say, okay, Buffalo, what can we do to partner with you from Erie to Buffalo and maybe from Cleveland to Erie to Buffalo to take advantage of that infrastructure bill? We want to make Chuck Schumer happy. There's a New York contingent. There's an Ohio contingent to make the Ohio representatives happy. There's a Pennsylvania contingent to make a Pennsylvania contingent happy. So when you go to DC and you've got a bigger package and you've got more areas working together, then I think there's more of an incentive to contribute and make a difference in those areas. That's what the next mayor should be thinking about.
You're both running as Republicans. Mike Kelly is the Republican representative for most of this, the city of Erie. Is he doing enough to represent this community? Congressman Kelly.
Would love to work with Congressman Kelly on ways that Erie can benefit more from what's going on at the federal government. My answer to everything, we can always be doing more. I mean, that's a simple answer. Simple answer, and here's a exact example that I just gave you. If there is a $1 trillion infrastructure bill that's going to pass in DC, then the mayor, the county executive, the surrounding municipalities should be sitting down with Congressman Kelly and also Congressman Thompson, whose district cuts through the county as well, and figuring out how ways we can collaborate together and work together with maybe the representatives from New York and Ohio to take advantage of that.
John Whaley?
If you're watching Mike Kelly, no, you're not doing enough to help Erie. And I'm going to blame the mayor on some of that. I would get in my car and I would drive to Butler and visit him. I would drive to D.C. and visit him when I could. We need to be partners. We do need his help. But no, I don't think he's left Butler and come up here and said, hey, I got some money for a road. I've got something for this. I called his office to get tickets to go to the White House for my family. Boom, got him. We're not seeing roads up here. We're not seeing infrastructure. We're not seeing help. So Democratic rule up here. Maybe he's Republican. Maybe he hasn't been asked. Maybe we're afraid to ask. Maybe he's been asked and doesn't want to help. In politics, you help me, I help you. I would make sure that he helps us. But no, he's not doing enough.
John Whaley, why are you a Republican?
Started out voting Republican. I was raised Republican. I was very much pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If you're in trouble, it's your fault. I don't need help, so you don't need help. Voted for Reagan, voted for the Papa Bush. Got a little older, got a little smarter, got some empathy, went the other way. I got a deep stream of D in me. But as an older person, paying taxes, business owner, where I'm putting up 50% of my employees' health care, I'm paying the FICA, I'm not struggling to stay alive, but every week you wonder how you're going to make payroll. I then look and I say, boy, I'd like smaller government. I'd like people to stop wasting my money. I would like rules that stop hurting me, and so that's a Republican.
So let me stop there. Would you have supported today's vote in the House that basically changes the Affordable Care Act?
No, my empathy in me comes out. I think the pre-existing condition is far too important. There's a solution, but it's not the one that came out today, and I don't think it'll pass the Senate anyway.
Why are you a Republican?
I'm a conservative. In a Declaration of Independence, we believe that all men are created equal and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that government should exist to protect those rights. I became a Republican after September 11th. My father was in the World Trade Center, or was 2 blocks from the World Trade Center. He walked through the World Trade Center before the first plane hit and after the second plane hit. And he had also walked through the World Trade Center 10 minutes before the bomb went off 8 years before that. And I appreciated President Bush's approach that we are no longer going to handle terrorism as a law enforcement matter, that we were going to investigate after the fact, and that we were going to gather evidence and try to prosecute these individuals who may not be anywhere around. I appreciated the fact that he was going to be more proactive and go after terrorists. And so that's when I became a Republican. But at heart, I'm a conservative because I believe that we are all endowed with these certain inalienable rights that government should exist to protect.
And the role of mayor, though, is much more than that. I mean, we're not going to talk
It's
about
about
rights.
potholes and garbage and making sure that our citizens are safe. And that's why at the start I talked about we should be doing 3 things. Investing in education, so we've got great schools here, so people want to live here. Cleaning up our city, that's within the mayor's purview. Getting rid of the trash, taking care of the potholes, getting rid of the violence, getting rid of the blighted properties, and then fighting for Erie's future. Making sure that we're working with the other representatives to make sure government is playing that role.
Would that also include syncing up the street lights or the traffic lights so you can go from one end to the other without hitting a
Yes,
red
big
light?
round of applause for that, because that is a pet peeve when I drive down State Street and it's stop and go, and it's not that far of a distance. And quite honestly,
You could add another minute to your commute.
Exactly. And I can't waste another minute when I've only got 6 of them to spare.
If I can touch on that for a second, that's why I'm running for mayor. We have an office called Traffic Engineering. We have 2 traffic engineers, and we have 3 other people that do lights. We don't have timed streetlights. We don't have stoplights that work. We are missing a lot of things. We have 5 people in an office that probably costs about $500,000 a year. It needs managed, and it needs leadership. So that was, can you repeat your question?
You answered it. I was asking about the traffic lights. John Whaley, are you prepared for GE to eliminate more jobs or potentially to leave this community entirely? Do you have a plan?
As a mayoral candidate, do I have a plan yet? No. It's going to happen. It's happening. It's gone.
Wait, so GE is leaving?
I'm positive of it. I know enough people that work there. I think the handwriting's on the wall. Locomotive sales are down. If they haven't sold a new locomotive, I don't think, in North America in 3 years. You're in the wrong business. If I didn't sell something for 3 days, I'd be out of business. They haven't sold a new locomotive in 3 years. So we have depended on them for the last 100 years, to the detriment, I think, of our area. Now, they're in Lawrence Park, and they don't directly affect us. And I would imagine some of the workers live in Erie, but most of the workers do not. I think they live in Harbor Creek and Northeast, and et cetera. So I think we need to plan that they're not going to be here. Those ancillary jobs that come from waitresses and tire purchases and all the things that those folks have. But I don't think it's really. I don't think we're going to lose a lot of citizens over it. But I do think it's a foregone conclusion. I don't think anything can stop it.
You agree or disagree?
With what parts?
With GE. Do you think that they're going to leave? And if so, do you have a plan to try to stop it?
I can't speak for GE, but I've got a plan. With regards to the GE that's here, they're dealing with locomotives. And there's a decline in demand for locomotives due to the decline in energy. They were sending a lot of locomotives and parts to places where they're doing mining. I know because I saw it in Australia. They were sending parts there. That's what's been causing the decline here. But a few weeks ago, the CEO of GE, Jeff Immelt, the big CEO, not the CEO of GE Locomotive, was talking about GE's transformation in the 21st century. And what he was talking about is that they were going to get into the IoT, the Internet of Things. They were going to start building more devices that are connected to the internet. Refrigerators, toasters, microwaves. We should be positioning ourselves to take advantage of what GE is transforming into. We've got skilled labor here that can be manufacturing those devices. And guess what? We've got a great intelligence program at Mercyhurst. Those students are learning about data, they're learning about the use of data, they're learning about Intel. So we should be partnering with Mercyhurst, we should be partnering with GE to say, Jeff Immelt, big CEO of GE, Erie's ready for you in your transformation. Locomotives may go down, we hope that they come back, but here's a unique opportunity for you to make a difference.
But is Erie ready? And part of that involves a community college. Is there any reason why we should not have a community college, especially with a focus on vocational training?
Right now, our K through 12th grade school system is underfunded by $10 million. And they've known about this underfundedness for the last several years. We've been talking about a community college for 7 years now. We've also been talking about a school system that needs funds right now. I think our focus should be on making sure that we have the best kindergarten through 12th grade program. People move to areas because of those school districts. Again, I said, you ask anyone who lives outside the city and they give you two reasons, schools and taxes. CEOs, executives who are going to make decisions about where to invest aren't going to want to live in areas that don't have good school districts. So why don't we drill down, get the whole community rallied around getting the best public school system in the city, and that will make a huge impact. Then people will want to move here, people will want to live here, people will want to invest here. That should be our focus right now.
So your answer is no to a community college?
Until we get our schools funded, right now, no.
John Whaley.
The last thing we need is a community college in the city of Erie. A number of reasons why. I attended a presentation here by the president of Allegheny Community College down in Pittsburgh. And he said their main goal was to be remedial math and English teachers. That's not what we're going to build a community college for. That's what our school system needs to fix. And if the state needs to come in and take over the only failing school district in the state of Pennsylvania, they need to do that and fix that. Grade 13 is not to teach a guy multiplication. There's been talk for years. 5 years ago, I worked for a gentleman who was a trustee at Penn State Barron. The four colleges got together, and they talked about what can they do right now to help. And they came up with what they called the Chinese menu option. And there'd be 3 classes at Barron, and then you'd go down to Edinburgh, take a couple. Mercyhurst Northeast, right now, almost everybody goes for free right now. They work with them to get Pell Grants, things like that. So I don't think right now there's a need for it. And the other thing that concerns me as a non-birther from Erie is I think it is racing ahead full speed. There's groups, there's money. They want to build a building, and I think they want to fill it with political appointees, friends, and retirees. And so there's a number of reasons why right now I don't think we need one.
And Steve, on John's point about remedial math, it's not just that. When I don't know if he went to the briefing that was put on by the Erie Foundation, the Community Foundation, where they gave us a briefing on the proposed community college. They gave us a briefing on the Innovation District. And I asked, well, what courses would be offered at the community college? And the representative said, well, I've heard from a number of seniors who want to take winemaking classes or photography classes. You snicker back there, but that's what she said. And I don't think that's the best use of government's resources right now when we don't have a funded kindergarten through 12th grade system. So the focus should be on making sure our kids get a great education. At that point, we can reassess where they're at once they graduate 12th grade.
John Whaley?
If we talk about Internet of the future, Internet of Things, the future, advanced manufacturing, I don't think the community college fills that void. I think you need coders, you need advanced degrees. If you go to Silicon Valley, they're hiring PhDs in math from Stanford. That's what you need. That's what Facebook needs. So if GE is going to open an outpost here to save money and have 20 engineers, they're not going to hire a guy with an associate's degree in whatever. So I just don't think it's the right thing at the right time right now.
Let's talk about Pittsburgh, because if you've been down there, and I know you have, the city has truly transformed itself over the last 20 or 30 years. Buffalo is in the process of doing that. Cleveland is doing that. Admittedly, they're larger cities, but what are they doing that we're not?
I had a great opportunity to go down to Pittsburgh last week. I was only on the ground for 24 hours. Got to sit and have dinner with the Allegheny County executive. Went and over to Uber's headquarters there, toured it, met with officials, got a ride in a self-driving car. Fortunately, there was no accidents. We also met with the Pittsburgh mayor's chief of staff. And one of the things that you hear both from the mayor's office, from the Uber executives, is the outreach to the community, the outreach specifically to the business community. They roll out the red carpet when businesses are looking to come into town and invest in the city. The mayor is there, his chief of staff is there. And one of the things that Pittsburgh has benefited from, specifically the reason why Uber is there, is because the creators, the inventors behind the technology of the self-driving car were professors in the robotics program at Carnegie Mellon. So what does that suggest to us? Why don't we work with our local universities who have very unique programs that no one else in the world has to spur business here? As I mentioned earlier, Mercyhurst's Intelligence School, Barron's Plastics Program, Gannon's Risk Management and Insurance Program. These are unique programs. The mayor should be working with the university presidents, those professors, and most importantly, those students to make sure that we're spinning off businesses, we're getting outside businesses to invest in the city, and we're putting people to work.
Again, John Whalen, what's Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Cleveland doing that we're not?
I think all three of them bottomed out, and we haven't bottomed out yet. But in Pittsburgh, I believe they went into Act 47, which is the state's plan to help you restructure your city. You can get rid of legacy costs, you can rewrite contracts, you can do a number of things 10 years ago that are helping them today. So Lawrenceville is one of the trendiest parts of Pittsburgh, and that's where my sister-in-law lives. Nobody in this room would have lived in Lawrenceville 10 years ago. It was horrific. Prices went down so much that the people that were graduating from college and were finding jobs needed a place to stay, and they started scooping them up, and it grew and grew and grew, and now they're just building brand new, $1 million condos. So I think, truly, like Brooklyn, all these cities, Detroit bottomed out. You can't bottom out any more than Detroit. And then people say there's opportunity. I can buy land cheap, I can buy this place cheap, I can bring in 1,000 workers from an insurance company and pay them low wages, but they can still afford to live there. So part of it has nothing to do with what the mayor did, everything to do with just economics 101. But Bill Peduto, Ravenstall was a good mayor, I thought. I thought he tried a lot of things very young. Now Bill Peduto, he's on Twitter every day. Whether it's him or it's a staff member, he's got a digital marketing person in his office. He's got people doing things. He's at every event. When there's something in D.C. for the mayor's conference, he's there. Erie's mayor's not there. Erie's mayor get in a car and drive to D.C. and go to these things. He doesn't do that. So his quote is, like John said, we're going to roll out the red carpet and get rid of the red tape. And I do think in Pittsburgh they make it really easy. Now, we have Gannon, we have Mercyhurst, but that is not Carnegie Mellon. So they do have a leg up in Pitt and some of these colleges that are research universities that we don't quite have that. So we're not spinning off some of the same type of graduates. But I know right now there's 3 guys at Gannon that have an idea for a website and a product, and there's nobody at the city's going to help them. There's no incubator they can go to that's cheap. So we don't have certain things that we could be doing right now. We have an incubator at $700 a month, and you need good credit to get a room in there. Oh, Radius, okay, I'll buy that. But we're not doing certain things we could be doing to get these businesses started. So some of it's organic. We haven't hit bottom yet.
For those that didn't catch that reference, John was speaking about Radius Co-work. One of the co-founders, Sean Fedorko, is here. They're in the Renaissance Center. If you've got a business and you don't want to invest in an office, you can go and rent a desk or a cubicle from them, rent office space, rent a room to have a meeting. There's your plug. Shameless.
There you go, thank you.
Shameless pandering.
So let me just go back one more point, and I don't mean to harp on this, but there's been so much discussion, even in the last debate over Mayor Sinnott, and praise for the work that he's done on the city's fiscal books. But has he managed the city's decline?
Well, yes. I think that we've kicked the can down the road on a number of options. It was just last year that the city refinanced over $50 million in various bonds. Mayor Savacchio is here. We took a bond that was about to be paid off from Mayor Savacchio's term in office and rolled it up and refinanced it. And now my children can pay for that in the year 2030. We are borrowing money to pave streets. We're borrowing money to buy cop cars and calling that a capital investment. That's not a capital. That's gone in 2 years maybe. So I think that fiscally they've really tried to stay out of Act 47. I think Act 47 would not be the worst thing for this city. but to curry favor with unions and with employees, they've stayed out of Act 47. But they've kicked the can down the road, and they have not helped our finances at all. We're not in a good shape right now.
Well, let me follow up, because when she left as the mayor of the city of Erie, Mayor Sabacchio said that the city was, quote, good and getting better, but the priority had to be on infrastructure. So my same question, has Mayor Sinnott been managing the city's decline in these areas?
He had to focus on city finances. When he came in, got us out of Act 47, saved us all from Act 47, but it's been over 12 years ago. And we do need to make sure that we as a community are shifting our focus to take care of that, as I mentioned earlier, 40% overstock in terms of infrastructure. Because we are now 12 years on, and we're going into a different world with GE leaving town, with new technologies coming town. So we have to have a mayor who's thinking outwardly in terms of what we can be doing from a city's perspective to make sure that we are not being left farther behind.
Both of you have outside advisors. Name one or two people who you turn to for advice. Who would be part of your kitchen cabinet if you're the mayor of the city of Erie? John Persinger.
I've been blessed to be part of a
And
great...
You can't mention Radius. You've already mentioned that. So.
I've been blessed to be part of a great law firm. McDonald Dillig has been in the community for over 100 years. They have great clients here locally, great clients across the country, great clients across the world. We've got wonderful attorneys there, wonderful staff. Our managing partner, Russ Warner, he's a Republican. He's been involved in a number of different boards and charities and civic events. One of our other senior partners, Jim Walzak, he's a Democrat. He's been involved in a number of different boards, civic events. His father, I believe, was on city council. His grandfather was a political leader, Democratic Party. Those two individuals I turn to every day for questions about the law, questions about this race, questions about life in general. They're two people who I think I would continue to turn to if getting elected.
John Whaley.
I currently don't have anybody on a staff. I don't have an advisor. I wrote my own commercials. I'm here tonight alone. But I read a lot, and I pay attention, and I watch TV, and there's some folks out there that I think would be great in city government, great on boards, willing to come in on January 2nd, 2018 and help me. I love Mayor Sabacchio's quote. I think the first day in office, you said, what now, right? It's scary and it's crazy. But I'd bring in some folks that aren't on boards now, that are not the same names that if you've been in Erie for a while, you've heard. You've heard over and over and over. And because of that, I think that's where we're at today. So I don't have an advisor, and I'll find one. I need to get through May 16th first, but that's where I'm at.
How does John Whaley make a decision?
I like a lot of information, but I think as a business owner, as a father, you have incomplete information, and I think it's the one thing that I thrive on. And if you read about folks that I think are successful, I love Steve Jobs, Zuckerberg. These guys made decisions with incomplete information. You're never going to know both sides of the story. You're never going to know everything. So you have to be able to make a decision and hope that it's right, and we're going to make some mistakes probably.
What has been the most difficult decision you've ever had to make?
Quitting my job and going back to college at the age of 30, probably. I had a great career. I was making a lot of money, and I noticed I didn't go to college. I didn't need college. College wasn't for me, etc. And I saw other people starting to blossom at the age of 30, and I was kind of stagnant and working till midnight and things like that. So it was gut-wrenching. We had a child. We had our first child. I had a good job and chucked it all, went to the Ohio State University, got my degree, and that was probably the hardest thing I've done.
And you passed the test. It is the Ohio State. So
Absolutely,
thank you very
every
much.
time.
John Persinger, same question to you. How do you make a decision?
Two things. One, I talk to the experts, and two, I talk to the people who I trust to give me blunt, honest, candid advice.
And who are those people?
Well, going back to the experts first, you learn pretty early on when you go to Harvard that you're not the smartest person in the room, and that there are a number of smart people in this world who have great ideas, a lot of experts. Oftentimes, though, when you're making decisions, you're going to get conflicting advice, and experts have different conflicting advice. So at the end of the day, it's going to be a judgment call. You've got to have people that you rely on, you can bounce ideas off of to give you blunt, honest, candid advice. Two of those people I mentioned earlier are Russ Warner and Jim Walzak at our law firm McDonald Dillig. My wife, Sarah, is obviously a really important person not only in terms of my life, personal life, but in terms of someone I seek for guidance. She's got a master's degree from the American University of Beirut in Middle Eastern politics. She was a freelance journalist in the Middle East for 4 years. She reported from Baghdad at the start of the Iraq War. She got, politely escorted out of Libya by Gaddafi's secret police. She was a top journalist in Sydney, in Canberra, when I met her. She's got a world of experience. She's humble. She gives me honest advice. And so I'm blessed that she is my wife. I'm blessed that she's the mother of our children. And I'm blessed that I've got someone in the house who's never afraid to tell me when I'm wrong.
Can I throw one thing in?
Sure.
I'm going to make every decision for the 99,400 people that live in this city. The good of the many always outweighs the good of the few, always. So it might be an unpopular decision. It might be something someone doesn't want to hear, that, oh, we're not going to pave anything in Frontier this year, but we're going to concentrate somewhere else. But that's important. So the good of the many, that's how I'm going to make my decisions.
As you know, President Trump is realizing that he can have all the ideas in the world. He needs Congress to approve those plans. So if you're elected as the Republican mayor, safe to bet that there will be 7 Democrats on city council. It takes 4 votes. How do you get there?
You've got to be a diplomat. One thing I learned from being a diplomat, you've got to be willing to cross party lines. You've got to be humble in your approach to life and be respectful of other people's opinions. I had a really interesting encounter when I was at the embassy. We were working on a multi-million-dollar upgrade, national security upgrade to the embassy, the ambassador's residence, and I was working with our operations manager. He's a grizzled 50-year-old Australian former rugby player, always spoke very blunt and honest to me because we were friends and we had that relationship. There was something that we disagreed on, something the ambassador wanted and he didn't think was a good idea. He looked at me and goes, you know, if we don't like it, we'll just wait until you're gone. Because you're appointed. You'll be gone in 2-3 years, and we're going to continue to work here. It was a really good, insightful sort of comment. And that's my approach to working in government. There are going to be people who outlast you, either they're career public servants, or there are going to be other council members who are elected who are going to outlast you. If you want to get things done, you got to figure out what's in their best interests, figure out what's in the city's best interests, and how to meet those interests together so that you can get things done and so that the entire city benefits.
But if you agree that this city is at a crossroads, can you even wait 2, 3, 4 years for them to be out of office?
No, I was saying that they wait for the mayor to leave office. Mm-hmm. That's what my point was. The ambassador was appointed. He was going to be gone in 2 to 3 years. This was a career public servant, so they knew that they were going to be gone. But no, you can't wait. I'm saying the bureaucracy, the carryover from administration to administration knows you're going to be gone. So you've got to be figuring out how to work with them. And yeah, we're in a crisis. We need to get a lot of things done. If you're going to get things done, you got to figure out how they can work together with you to get those things done.
John Whaley, same question.
Well, there's a number of things the mayor can do without city council. They're going to make some laws, but the day-to-day operations of the city is almost 100% up to the mayor, and he can do a lot of things. I think in this coming election, we're going to see a switch in who's on city council. We're going to see some new faces. We're going to see some energetic folks that maybe it'd be easy to get 4 or 5 people on the mayor's side as opposed to struggling to get that 4th vote for something. I'm narcissistic enough to think that I would take good ideas to city council. If I really wanted something, it was for the good of the city, we'd plan it out, we'd write it out, we'd have a great argument to make, and we'd sit down with everybody that we needed and say, listen, this is going to help everybody. And although a newcomer to politics, I also understand that you might be able to bully some of the folks that you need to come along once in a while. What do you need? I'm going to help you out later. Going to drop somebody's name to the newspaper that might not be on the board with making the city better. You know, kind of bully somebody into that. So there's all kinds of ways to get people to work with you. But I would try a straightforward approach. Here's a great idea. I need you to pass this. We're going to all look good together, and we're all going to get reelected. Let's go.
It will be that easy?
I am pretty Pollyanna, and I think life's pretty good, and I think, yes, it'll be that easy. I'm not going to ask for something stupid, and I'm not going to ask for something we can't afford. So I think if I come up with an idea and I say, listen, we got to pass a rule that X, Y, Z, I think we'll get 4 votes, no problem.
Let me ask you the first question I asked the Democratic candidates, and that is the structure of city government. John Persinger, I'll start with you. Because as you know, there are many communities. Indianapolis is one of them, the formation of a metro government. we have so many layers of bureaucracy between the city and the townships in this community. Is it time to move forward with a more regional government that may mean no longer a mayor of the city of Erie?
We've got to be figuring out how we can work together. We may not be able to get to a regional government, but where we can start is working through regional authorities, sitting down with all the elected officials in the region to figure out what regional authorities are there that can be used for the benefit of the entire region. So that's one of the things that we'll have to go through. I don't know if we'll be able to get to a metro government, a
Why?
regional government.
Why?
Political will. I think that's what you're facing. Is you've got a number of elected officials in surrounding municipalities who don't want to merge together with the city of Erie. And the reason why, they look at our failing school system from a financial standpoint, they look at the crime, they look at the blighted properties, they don't want to assume responsibility for those problems. So if the mayor starts to tackle those problems and show that there's momentum in terms of getting the city cleaned up, getting great schools, then maybe they'll want to get on board and have that momentum spill over into their municipalities.
Same question.
Yeah, there are state laws to deal with, but we have Republican senators. We've got what I'm going to guess is going to be a Republican governor in 2 years, and they're for smaller government, and they might be willing to get some stuff done so that of the 38 municipalities in Erie County, some can start to merge. Fairview and Fairview Township did it years ago. Northeast Borough should be looking at it. The city right now should be able to go to Wesleyville and say, listen, you got a borough manager, you got a secretary, you got 5 cops, you got no firemen. Come on in. We got something great for you. And go to Harrisburg to help make that happen. I think we'll be regional in 20 years, or I think we're all going to be broke. I think it's got to happen. I think if Erie and Mill Creek merge, and now you've got 150,000 people, you can go and you look better, and you can spread the costs out. Right now the city collects real estate taxes for the school district and the county, and we do it pretty ably, and we collect the money and we give it back to them. So why aren't we doing payroll together? Why aren't we doing purchasing together? Why aren't we doing back office operations that we could combine together? Unfortunately, the purchasing person at the school district would go away, but the city could buy all the goods. So we can start, it doesn't have to be municipalities, it can be other governing bodies that work together. There is a COG, Council of Area Governments. It's been around for a long time. I don't see a lot coming out of that. We talk about buying rock salt together, and we talk about doing this, and it's not happening. So there's a new executive director, and hopefully it really becomes a powerhouse, and it's something that everybody joins and gets involved in. But we're doing some stuff now. I would just ramp it up.
John Persinger, you talked about crime, which is a big issue. You talked about the city schools. But the overarching issue from Erie Refocus is that the community needs a course correction. So some other specific things that you think need to be done besides what you've already outlined tonight.
Sure, and the comprehensive plan talks about those issues. I sat with the superintendent, and they asked for the school district to be included. Consultant said it would be another, I think, $300,000. There wasn't money for that. So that's why the schools aren't in there, but I think the schools should be the number one issue. Some of the things that we need to be doing in terms of not only getting rid of the blighted properties, cracking down on the violence, but also making sure that when you show up in Erie, you know you're in Erie. I tweeted about this a few weeks ago. Boston Airport is offering only Boston restaurants, goods, so that when people arrive, they know they're in Boston. We should be doing the same thing here in Erie. When you land in Erie, you should be able to buy nothing but a Smith hot dog, an Erie beer, a Lavery beer, and I don't care if it's 8 o'clock in the morning, that's what you're buying. But that's true not only there, it's true at the bus depot, it's true at the Amtrak station, it's true for 12th Street, State Street. When you come to Erie, you have to know you're in Erie. So May should be focused on doing that.
John Whaley, same question. In terms of course correction, besides what you've already outlined tonight, what specifically needs to be done that isn't being done?
Well, I'd like to talk about culture some more, but I will say, and this is going to refute something he just said, when I talk about Erie, I mean the 4.5 square mile back and forth Erie city limits. Erie International Airport, not in Erie. Erie Brewing Company, not in Erie anymore, going to be in Harbor Creek. So I would like to get together, and as the cheerleader and #1 salesman for the city of Erie, I'm going to go on TV and I'm going to go in the paper and I'm going to ask people that live in Erie to spend their money in Erie from day one. If you're going to buy a car, buy it from someone in Erie. If you're going to go out to dinner, do it in Erie. If you're going to buy a suit, figure out how to buy it in Erie. Stop going to Mill Creek, stop going to Summit. If we want to grow, We need to grow. We need to help ourselves. And if we have an inferiority complex or we don't think about that or we don't want to do that, so number one cheerleader, get out there, try to get Erie growing internally real fast. We can turn a switch like that. If 99,000 people start spending an extra $10 a week inside city limits, helps all those businesses. Now they can all hire one more person. Boom, boom, boom. I'd talk about them.
If you are elected, are you prepared to say, I will serve only one term? I may do things, I may make decisions that would really anger my supporters? John Whaley.
Yes, and if the people have been following me and watching me, they realize it might be a reality. I might want 12 and I might only get 4 because I'm going to anger some people. I'm not going to include the same people on the boards. 4 years is probably not enough time to do a lot of things, but you can sure get some stuff started. One of my pet peeves is someone's on city council for 8 years and says, I need 4 more. Well, what'd you do in the previous 4? So 4 is a long time. 4 can get some stuff done. And I truly believe with regionalization that there probably won't be a mayor. And I'd be happy if regionalization is not going to happen. Mimic Cincinnati, mimic Las Vegas. Let's have a city manager. Let's have a mayor that makes $30,000 a year and goes to parties and goes to picnics and goes to ribbon cuttings. But let's have someone who's not political, who's not duking it out trying to get contributions from folks and make this guy happy and promise this guy a job. That might help us immensely. And I'd be more than willing after 4 years to hand over the keys and say, here you go.
John Persinger.
Yes, the president's chief of staff used to tell us, keep your bags packed, because you can be replaced at any moment. If at the end of 4 years, the voters decide for a different course, I'm okay with that. As I said, I've got a great opportunity at McDonald-Dillich, working with wonderful clients, working with great colleagues. But the way that I think about this job, we've got 4 years to get things done, then 8 years to get things done, and then 12 years to get things done. So in terms of setting priorities, we want to make sure that we are setting priorities that are meeting with those time frames.
And how would you measure, what would the benchmark be in the first year of your administration?
First year of administration, make sure that our schools are funded. Make sure that we've gotten rid of some of those blighted properties. Make sure that violence in the city has gone down. Make sure that more people are buying homes in the city.
John Whaley.
Surplus of money in the bank. Fewer city employees on the payroll, probably. I'd like to see more miles of streets paved the first year that I'm mayor than have ever been paved before. So tangible, reachable items. Schools, yeah, I want to see good schools, but I think that is a high hurdle to jump on. I got enough to do with 99,000 people and a $127 million budget. First day in the office, I'd close both city golf courses. We'd make some really easy decisions very quickly and move on.
Let me talk to you about the crime epidemic and opioid in particular. Why is it getting so bad in the city, and how do you reverse the trend? John Whaley.
Oh, I did a little research. It's bad everywhere. Columbus, Ohio is one of the finest cities in the country, growing, clean, green, jobs everywhere. 1 fentanyl death a day, every day so far this year. Heroin, crazy. I'm old enough to remember heroin in the 70s and the French Connection, and it was rampant, and it died out. So people are hopeless. People don't have jobs. I get all that, but there are many, many middle-class, well-to-do people at the country club that are shooting up heroin and dying. So it's, I do think that doctors are overprescribing opioids right now. My daughter had an ACL injury. They were quick to write a 30-day supply, and we said, no, thank you. My son just broke his thumb, 16 years old, ready to give him a whole giant bottle of opioids. I said, no, we're not taking those in our house. We're not even, don't give me the prescription. He's fine with acetaminophen. I'm not a doctor, but I did make that call, and he was fine, by the way. So federal level, they need to figure out how to get people to stop prescribing things. And I don't want to say I'm not going to do anything, but I've looked at cities all across this country trying everything. It's an epidemic, and sometimes you can't stop an epidemic. An epidemic dies out on its own. It kills itself. So lots of things we can do. We can do counseling. We can arrest people. I'm for stop and frisk. It's legal in all 50 states. So if you suspect a guy looks a little hazy, let's stop him. Maybe he's got a gun. Maybe he's got some heroin. Maybe he's got whatever on him. We can arrest him. We can take that. We can try to attack the supply, but the desire on the other side, if you've got a bored housewife that wants to get high and forget about her troubles, I can't do anything about that. I really can't.
John Persinger.
Well, when we talk about this crisis, we got to think about it in terms of not only the prescription drugs, but also the abuse of heroin. And this isn't isolated to Erie. This is an epidemic across the entire country. So you need to have a mayor who's thinking creatively and collaboratively to work with the federal government and the state government and county government to make sure that we are cracking down on the abuse of prescription drugs and the availability of heroin. With regards to the prescription drugs, you can be working with state law enforcement, state regulators to make sure that they are not being overly prescribed and make sure that they are not being abused. In terms of heroin, I was reading an article just over the weekend that talked about how Mexican cartels, drug cartels, have flooded the U.S. market with cheap heroin because the legalization of or decriminalization of marijuana has resulted in no longer a demand for marijuana from Mexico. So there's more cheap heroin that's available in the U.S. That's a problem across the entire country. The mayor's got to be thinking creatively and collaboratively about how he can work with state, federal law enforcement to crack down on that availability here in Erie.
Final question, then we'll give you both a chance for a closing comment. What one thing, John Persinger, did you not know about the city of Erie that you have learned during this campaign?
That's a great question, and it's been a unique opportunity to go out and meet with individuals across the entire community. Before I announced, I sat down with about 150 different individuals from all walks of life. They confirmed what I'd been hearing anecdotally, concerns about the schools, concerns about the blighted properties, concerns about the violence, about the drugs. One thing, and this isn't as serious as those issues, but one thing that surprised me, there's apparently brick underneath the streets on 6th Street, underneath the pavement. And a great suggestion, pull up the pavement, expose that brick, give Erie some character. Make 6th Street down there, put gas lights in, have exposed brick so that it looks unique, it looks presentable. People want to move here, people want to live here because they see unique areas like that. Same with down on State Street. Sometimes I'll walk up to get a coffee from Starbucks from 100 State at our building to the Starbucks at 6th Street. And every time I walk past a building that's boarded up that has a plaque dedicated to Horace Greeley. Horace Greeley was publisher of the New York Tribune, one of the most prominent anti-slavery voices during pre-Civil War and Civil War era. He lived in Erie and worked in Erie. We have great history here, great cultural heritage. A mayor should be working to make sure that that building is not boarded up, that people know about it, that we're removing the pavement from 6th Street so people can come to Erie and see that this is a pretty special place to live.
John Whaley, one thing that you've learned in this campaign that you didn't know.
You know, people accuse me of being negative, and I don't think I'm negative. I think I'm a realist. But I'm going to say apathy. We've done numerous debates, forums, get-togethers, meetings. One night, 3 people showed up. 3 people showed up in a neighborhood center that should have been packed. This neighborhood center is in the middle of crime. It's in the middle of drugs. There's no jobs. And 3 people showed up. So all these people live in a wonderful country. We have the right to vote. We're fighting in countries across the world where people don't have the right. There's 67 voting districts in the city of Erie. You can walk to any one of them no matter where you live. It's easy, it's free, it's cheap. And so tonight, this is a nice turnout, and I appreciate this, and I'm sure there's a number of people who are going to watch it. But I would think at this stage in the game, in the city of Erie's history, it would be standing room only. And it was earlier for the Democrats. So we're not as well liked. We're a little less, popular. But there still should be 5 times as many people here. There should be more people tweeting me, more people calling him. The thing we did earlier up at Mercyhurst should have been packed. And it's sad because you reap what you sow. So if you get a flyer in the mail and you think, man, this looks pretty good, this guy's got jobs, and you vote for him, you're going to have the same Erie in 12 years that you got right now, and you're not going to have any jobs. So that is shocking to me. I thought Erieites were a little more up there, and it's not just Erie, it's probably in the entire country, but I'm feeling it every single day that I do something and I get out there and I say, hey, vote for me, and I knock on doors. I don't vote. I don't vote. No, I don't do signs. No, you can't get. It shocks me.
So with that, closing statements, and John Whaley, we'll begin with you. Why do you want to be mayor of the city of Erie?
I'm a transplant. I'm not from here. I've got 3 beautiful children that right now the path for them is not to stay in Erie. It's to go to college, get a job, go find a company that's growing, and go work somewhere else. I hate that because I think I'm going to stay here forever. We bought the house my wife grew up in. That's an Erie thing. It's pretty cool. Our kids went to school where she went to school. We got all this great stuff, but then the future doesn't look as great. So I said it before, I think Erie's in a death spiral. I think that it needs hard choices, tough choices, ugly choices by somebody with political will that's going to make it happen. We can talk about the comp plan, we can point to this, but unless you're living it and you're making people mad, the mayor should be making people mad every single day, really upsetting people because he's doing something. Half the people are going to love it, half the people are going to hate it. So I don't think we bottomed out. I think we're going to lose 5,000 or 10,000 more people. I think we need to get in there, work really hard, and help ourselves. And I think I'm the guy out of all the people running, ladies included. I think that I'm going to use the word political will. I'm stubborn. I'm from the outside looking in, and I see things that I know are wrong. And when you talk about it with your friends, they go, yeah, that's wrong. That's pretty messed up. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to change it. You're going to change the culture, and you're going to fix the city.
I'm just curious, do you see a little Donald Trump in you?
A little bit, maybe. I think I have better hair, but no, I think he's a scrapper. He's a fighter. He's a businessman who learned a few things. I really was impressed with him in the 80s when he did the Woolman Ice Rink. He went in and said, I got this. The unions aren't doing it. Let me build it. Let me keep all the money that I save. And he was really impressive. How 20 years later you own 6 casinos and go bankrupt 6 times? A casino, you'd have to try to go bankrupt. So I think he calls it like he sees it. I don't like that he's moving targets. He complained about 100 days. Obama didn't do anything, and now he's like, well, 100 days doesn't matter. So I'm not going to do that. I call it like I see it. I think everyone that's ever met me feels I'm honest with them. If I said something 3 weeks ago, I'll say it again today, and I'll say it on TV. I don't care. I am who I am. So a little bit.
John Persinger.
I'm running because I want to end 60 years of decline in the city. When I thought about getting into this race, I looked at the field and I saw that the certain candidates who've been talking about getting in for years now were talking about themselves. They were talking about the number of events that they attended, talking about how much they love Erie, but they weren't talking about the actual issues. When my grandparents, Dr. John and Dorothy DeMarco, moved here in 1962, Erie was a thriving city. You could put your kids in the public schools, you could get a good job, GE, Hammer Mill, and you could buy a home in a safe, stable neighborhood. Tonight, we talked about issues, and sadly, the Erie of today is different than when my grandparents moved here. It's different than when a number of you grew up. It's different, and I don't think in a good way. It's time we had politicians who are willing to admit that we've been in this decline. But here's the thing. Our past doesn't have to be our future. In this election, we have a choice. We can choose to end the decline. We can choose to reject the status quo. We can choose new leadership. So I thank you for being out here tonight, and I thank you for listening at home, because I know in your heart that you know we can be doing better in here. We should be doing better in Erie. So when you go to vote on May 16th, vote for me, but more importantly, vote for change. Vote to end the decline. Vote for new leadership. Thank you for doing this.
On behalf of WQLN, the Jefferson Educational Society, and the Erie Reader, to John Whaley and John Persinger, thank you both for being with us tonight. We appreciate it.